Township Committee, October 15, 2018. The notice requirements provided for in the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied. Notice of this meeting was properly given by transmission to the Star Ledger, the Independent, and the Two River Times, and by posting at the Middletown Township Municipal Building and filing with the Township Clerk all on January 18, 2018. Committeeman Hybel.
Here.
Committeeman Perry.
Here.
Committeewoman Snell.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Fiore.
Here.
Mayor Sedembrino.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence to honor the troops serving worldwide, defending our constitutions, freedoms, and way of life. Thank you. Our first item on tonight's agenda, we have certificates of appreciation and proclamations. We have a presentation recognizing Middletown Day 2018 gold, silver, and bronze sponsors. At this time, I'd like to call up, invite Mayor Sedembrino to please come forward with our Recreation Director, Janet Dellett, Maggie O'Brien, the Executive Director of the Arts Center, and Vic Wins, Assistant Director of Public Works, to present the awards for our 2018 Middletown Day sponsors. While all sponsors are not able to attend, we would still like to recognize or support those sponsors who are in attendance. Please come forward as I call your name. I'd like to begin with the gold sponsors. We have T&M Associates. That's the gold plus sponsors. T&M Associates. The gold sponsors, Archer and Griner, represented by Brian Nelson, O'Toole, Scrivo, and Fernandez. Then we have silver sponsors, Century 21, Thompson and Company, the Columbia Bank Memorial Sloan Kettering, Middletown Public Library, represented by Kim Rinaldi, Orange Theory Fitness, Middletown Township Education Association, represented by Michelle Slapinski, Provident Bank, represented by Jody DiPetro. Bronze sponsors, we have Care One, CME Associates, Foley Prep, Mazer Consulting, represented by Kevin Haney, Middletown Family Pharmacy, the MRC Game Time, the Community YMCA, represented by Keisha Gelf, Saker ShopRites, and Soden's Electric, represented by Brian Bodish.
Just a quick thank you to all the sponsors for Middletown Day. As you know, all of Middletown Day is done at no taxpayer expense. It's done through the volunteers and with our township and with sponsorship as well. So it was a great day. We want to make sure that certainly we recognize all the organizations that helped make Middletown Day a fantastic day for us.
The next proclamation we have on tonight's agenda is recognizing November 11, 2018 as Veterans Day in Middletown Township. And then also we have a proclamation recognizing November 24th as Small Business Saturday in Middletown Township. Our next item, we have introduction of proposed ordinances. Our first ordinance, 2018-3240, an ordinance establishing Community Assistance Network Volunteer Advisory Committee.
Motion to introduce. Second.
Committeeman Hybel.
Yes.
Committeeman Perry.
Yes.
Committeewoman Snell.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fiore.
Yes.
Mayor Sedambrino.
Yes.
Motion carries to pass this ordinance on first reading with a public hearing to be held November 19, 2018. At this time, I'd like the Township Committee to adopt a consent agenda, which would include resolutions 18-233 through 18-238, removing 18-237 for a separate vote, and including bingo and raffle applications and fire applications.
Motion to approve consent agenda, please.
Second.
Committeeman Heibel.
Yes.
Committeeman Perry.
Yes.
Committeewoman Snell.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fiore.
Yes.
Mayor Sedambrino.
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt consent agenda. At this time, we have Resolution 18-337, a resolution authorizing shared services agreement for Building and Inspections Department with the Borough of Highlands.
So moved. Second.
Committeeman Heibel.
Yes.
Committeeman Perry.
Yes.
Committeewoman Snell.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fiore.
Yes.
Mayor Sedambrino.
Recuse.
Motion carries to adopt Resolution 18-237 with refusal notice. At this time, we have Township Committee comments.
Thank you, Committeeman Havel.
We'll lead the way here. It was a busy month. I'm just going to report on a couple of things here. So, Naval Firehouse, just a big addition to the fleet there. We got a specialized pumper. That's going to assist in getting to all areas of town. It's the first four-wheel drive piece of equipment we have. So, I just want to mention that I got to spend the night at Ice World with my family for Middletown night, which was a great time. It's the first time I've been there for a full hockey game, and we had a great time. So everyone should try to visit that. And thank you everyone for coming tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Committeeman Snell.
Thank you. A couple things. Yesterday, Committeeman Fiore and myself were at Fairview Fields for Middletown Soccer Club for the kickoff of their clothing drive starting October 27th. So it was a fun time. It was really neat to see all the kids playing soccer, all the little athletes out there, and it was a beautiful day. So, one other thing that I wanted to mention was last Monday, Mayor Sedambrino and myself were at Memorial Gardens for the Stride Ride Foundation. We met them there. It's a group of walkers, riders, bicyclists, and what they're doing is they're spanning 911 miles. They start in Boston, and they go all the way down to Arlington, Virginia. They honor all the people who perished on 9/11. They honor the men and women deployed on October 7th of 2001, after 9/11. They honor those lost at war and those that carry the invisible wounds from war. They also honor all those serving right now, veterans plus first responders. And they're going to make Middletown a stop on their journey every year. We actually got to hold the flag that had all the names on the flag. What did that weigh? Yeah, it was a heavy flag.
Quite a bit, yes.
Yeah, it was a heavy flag. So they're going to make it a point to come every year, and it would be nice to have a turnout. We walked the gardens, and they thought the gardens were beautiful, and it was really an emotional day. So keep it on your calendars for October next year.
No motorcycle riding, Committeeman Snell?
I think you might want to highlight on that, because I was where I did it. They had two motorcycles there, and we each got to sit on the motorcycle. But you got the bigger one, I got the smaller one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Committeeman Perry.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things. I want to thank Deputy Chief Schweitzer was here. I'm not sure if he's still in the room. Oh, he's right there with our former fire chief over there. But I just want to thank the chief. Did a great job last weekend, I believe, teaming up with New Jersey Natural Gas and pulling out all the stops for a New Jersey Natural Gas joint drill with the Middletown Fire Department and along with several county resources. So I want to thank you, thank the department. You and John, Assistant Chief Friedman did a great job the other day, and just want to thank you for that. I attended a shared services meeting with Senate President Sweeney and Freeholder Director Arnone. It was a great bipartisan effort that took place over at the Fire Academy, Monmouth County Fire Academy. And I just wanted to point out that I very much appreciate that bipartisan group to come together and really do, try and start conversations for great things to occur, not only here, obviously, in Middletown, but across the county, across the state, and emphasize shared service agreements. So that was good. Tonight, we voted on the Community Assistance Network. We voted on that resolution. It's something I've been working on for the past few months now, and I'm glad to see that it's finally coming to fruition, especially ahead of the holiday season this year. This group will be made up of nonprofits, public residents of Middletown, members of different clergies and churches, and the idea is to form a network that will be able to quickly and rapidly respond to tragedies, folks that are looking for assistance, whether it be food, clothing, housing. This is going to be our mobile response, our fast response. So I want to thank the Township Committee, the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and the rest of the committee for allowing me to spearhead that project and to bring this together. I hope to be that we're able to work on filling those appointments for that very soon. But that'll be a great thing to have ahead of the holiday season when we have such great nonprofits like Middletown Helps Its Own currently here in town, and just to be able to add that for other purposes will be needed and necessary, and it'll be a welcoming and just a real spirit of the season type of board and commission that will operate all year round. And then finally, I had a meeting with the Veterans Affairs Committee. We are working together on, we have 4 war memorials across Middletown, and not many people know about that. And we have been incredibly successful with placing, naming, and dedicating streets after fallen residents of Middletown. And I'm sure you've seen those blue signs all across town. And they're very well done and beautifully made. And now, to honor those lost in war, we will be having directional signs for those war memorials created and placed in some strategic positions across town so that folks in Middletown will be able to visit them and pay tribute to that. So with that, I will wrap up.
Thank you, Committeeman Perry. Deputy Mayor Buer.
Thank you, Mayor. A few comments this evening. One, a thank you, kind of go in chronological order, but a thank you to all of the sponsors, as well as all of the volunteers and everyone who made Middletown Day such a tremendous community day for this community once again. We had a great day at the end of September, weather-wise, and it was really, as we mentioned before, cannot be done without the support and partnership of so many in the business community and so many volunteers and staff here that volunteer their time to put on such a great community day. So a very heartfelt thank you for all that went into Middletown Day 2018. Thank you. I deserve the applause. Also, a few other comments this evening. One with regards to shared services, and my colleague, Committeeman Perry, mentioned, he being part of the shared service summit with the freeholder and I believe the Senate President. But one of the things we did this evening is we entered into, or we were about to enter in, yet another shared service agreement in this municipality, and that's with the Borough of Highlands? The Borough of Highlands for construction official services and building department services. And this is not the first shared service agreement this year. I think we've had 2 or maybe 3 other ones we've done so far this year, but we continue to try to find ways to work with other neighboring municipalities, with other neighboring, with other entities throughout the town to share services, which ultimately leads to lower cost and more efficiency. And that's a big reason why we've been able to deliver 2 consecutive municipal budgets here of 0 tax increases. Okay, and that's very hard to say in the state of New Jersey right now. And we will continue to look at those innovative ways to bring in revenue and increase efficiency to try to provide more for our dollars, our tax dollars, because every tax dollar is an important tax dollar. We all pay them. With that said, there are some potential headwinds, out there, and this committee has been, and I hope will continue to be, pro-business and try to continue the path forward of getting ratables from the business ratable community. And if you didn't read the articles today, you haven't been following the Wall Street Journal or everything else, you get the notification today that Sears, one of our biggest taxpayers, is going to be closing, okay, through their Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And that's something that we as a committee need to always, it's something I think we've all expected, but it's something that we have to continue to monitor. It's something that we have to continue to try to make Middletown as attractive as possible for the business community, because it's these businesses that are so vital to our property tax structure in terms of us, being able to provide all of the services at the most potential cost. So I know the committee will work very hard and diligent with the property owner to try to work hopefully another business rateable into that. I believe they're going to be around for a few more months. I don't think it's an imminent closing of a closing. And then finally, I know many of you, I can imagine many of you were here to voice similar comments to the last meeting, so I will save some comments back. I know there's a lot of information that's been going out that I'm not necessarily sure is accurate information. I'm aware of a mailer that was sent out to the Shady Oaks community and the neighboring streets that join Stevenson Park that did not have any disclosures on it. So I can't really tell where it came from, but happy to answer any questions and maybe give an update on our progress to find maybe an alternate location for this, for what we conceptually thought of for the need for our young athletes. So Mayor, I'll save those comments for answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Fury. So I have two items this evening. Although I did attend most of the events with the Township Committee, I will not repeat them, although the motorcycle that I sat on at the Stride Drive was with the Committeewoman Snow. They didn't let us drive to the Labor Station. It was a great event to go to, so they're making Middletown one of their stops. Thank you. So two items. One is about 2 weeks ago, I did have the ability to sit with Comcast newsmakers and Jill Horner and report on our microgrid study status. So to date, the municipality has had a second microgrid study status update. So I just want to take a couple minutes to bring you up to date on what that piece was about, and talk about the grant that the municipality has received. One of 13 municipalities received a $150,000 grant to study a microgrid in the region. And essentially the microgrid is something called a distributed energy resource. It's a local power source. It's a sustainable power source. And it permits the power to be generated locally in case of a power outage. And this is something that we're, again, one of 13 municipalities that we've been received a grant to study. At the end of this year, will be completed. At the beginning of next year, potentially, we may be selected to fund all or part of the design of that microgrid, and part and parcel of which is the Naval Weapons Station Earl, and one of the largest users in the region. But this is for the power of critical infrastructure in the area. It's schools, Naval Weapons Stations Earl, municipal buildings, and so forth. So it's not houses, but it's a critical infrastructure, so that in the case of a power outage, we would have standby power. Think of it as a big generator, if you will. Standby power for our substations that's be generated locally as opposed to somewhere from the grid. So we did that interview with Jill Horner on CNN. It's out there. Take a look. We tried to keep it high level, but it is something very serious that the township is doing, and it's become a leader in the state of New Jersey with regard to sustainable power and the ability to recover immediately after storms. So that's something that we're doing right now. Additionally, I was able to attend I was asked to interview from Jersey Matters. That again, although Middletown is is ranked the 16th safest municipality in the state, we are ranked the #1 safest municipality in the state of New Jersey with residencies over 60,000. And that was tremendous, and it's due in part to all of our volunteers. It's due in part to our fantastic police department and fire department here. And it's due in part to the neighborhood organizations such as the Winthrop Village Green, such as Citizens for a Better Leonardo, such as Ideal Beach, that look after their communities and help make Middletown one of the safest places to live in the state. So if you didn't know that, please be aware of it. We're certainly proud of it. We're proud of our police department and everyone that works here in the township. With that, what I would like to do is close township committee comments. We're certainly ready to hear everyone here tonight. I want to give you guys as much opportunity to speak as you can. I do have in front of me a list that people have signed up to make comments. Since this is I didn't move along. Since this is a list that I have here, it is not a final list, so at the conclusion of me calling anyone on this list that wanted to speak with regard to open comments, you certainly can speak after that. However, I would request that you keep your comments to 5 minutes so that we can hear as many people as possible. That being said, do we need anything else? I think that's it. Thank you. So that being said, I'm going to open the floor to comments from the public. When you come up, please state your name and address. Again, I please ask you to keep your comments to 5 minutes. So I'm going to call from the list to start. Linda Alonso, please. Pam, you have to go off the microphone, please.
Excuse me?
You have to go off the microphone, please.
Oh, we go up there?
Yes.
I'm a resident of, my name is Linda Alonso, and I'm a resident of Shady Oaks as of about 5 years ago. And, pardon me?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And, well, I'm very concerned, like the rest of the residents, not only in Shady Oaks, but Shadow Lake, Shadow Brook, and the rest of the community of Lincroft, about the proposed, or the plan, the conceptual plan of building soccer fields. I find that the area is not really prepared to receive the traffic that would mean, having 9 soccer fields and 300 somewhat parking spaces. But it saddens me too, very, very much, the destruction of that beautiful park that a lot of the residents enjoy. All of the residents, it's like a piece of heaven there. And that's going to be destructed, and it just breaks my heart. Aside from that is the problem of the traffic. People go to Riverview Hospital often from our community, and from the rest. There are school buses on West Front Street. And this is really going to cause havoc to the residents who, at this point in our lives, we were expecting to have quiet, tranquility, peace, and our property values definitely are going to go down. Somebody is going to benefit. We're going to lose a lot, and we won't even be able to move, because where are we going to move if we won't be able to sell our properties? So, again, what saddens me the most is the destruction of the beautiful trees and the forest and the lake and everything. Thank you.
certainly appreciate them. What I'd like to do moving forward before I call the next speaker is I suspect that a lot of you here this evening have concerns with regard to traffic. I've asked our administrator to review the traffic from the last meeting and generate some information with regard to that, so that in anticipation of some of those traffic questions, we can get them answered from the start, based on the information that Mr. Mercantante has gathered. So I'd like to do that first.
Well, the issue of traffic is one that we, obviously take seriously. The reason people are wondering, why isn't there a traffic study? Where's our traffic study? There's a reason for that, and that is that we have parks all over town. We have parks that have many more facilities and attract more people than would happen at Stevenson Park. And I'll give you a few examples. We have Bodman Park, which is just off Navigation River Road, which is as busy, if not busier, than West Front Street. We have Fairview Fields, which is off of Oakville Road, and it's crossed by 2 rail lines, which is at least as busy, if not busier, than West Front Street. And we have McMahon Park, which is in a residential neighborhood off of Ocean Avenue in North Middletown. And all of those have more facilities than the Stevenson Park would have based on our plan. And the thing with traffic is that parks are used primarily on weekends during the daytime, when traffic is generally the lightest. If the road network adjacent to all those parks that I just mentioned are able to handle the peak hour traffic that they do handle from commuters or from people going to and from work, no park generates that much traffic. So the traffic study is sort of pointless because if the road network is...
Ladies and gentlemen, please, given everyone the due respect for speaking, we would expect the same. Thank you.
Yeah, I won't interrupt anybody who's speaking, I promise. So the traffic study would simply result in learning that the number of vehicles being utilized in the park will be far less than what's used during weekdays during work hours. And so, as I said, I won't interrupt anybody who's speaking. Okay? So again, not all of those parks in Township. McMahon Park has 4 baseball fields, 2 tennis courts, a roller hockey rink, and 2 basketball courts.
No soccer.
Bodman Park has 5 baseball fields, 2 basketball courts, a playground. Fairview Fields has 5 soccer fields and a baseball field. All of those, far more than what the township is talking about doing at Stevenson at this point. And therefore, none of those, there was not a traffic study done with any of those parks. There was not a traffic study needed because the type of trip generation that comes with parks is less than what happens on a typical weekday. So, private developments that are going to add to traffic on weekdays generally will do traffic studies to make sure that they can be accommodated. But weekend traffic from a recreational facility just doesn't generate that kind of volume of traffic that would make it useful to do a traffic study. Because what happened is if the traffic study comes back and says, well, yes, these fields will generate less traffic than is generated on a normal weekday, I'm sure everyone's not going to suddenly go, oh, that's great, then let's do the fields. Because traffic is just a kind of red herring issue in my viewpoint.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to hear everyone. So there was another portion of the comments made talking about the destruction of Stevenson Park. So I'd like the deputy mayor to take a couple moments to comment on that based on the development of the park.
So a few things I would just like to address for the speaker. Thank you for your comments, ma'am. I totally agree with a lot of what you said. The issue is we don't have the money to build 9 fields. Okay, and this is the frustrating part sometimes of information and Mayor and I are scheduled to go meet with your association tomorrow. I don't know how many of you are part of the association. Maybe you could let us know afterwards, so maybe we're not going to duplicate efforts. But ultimately, we don't have the money for 9 soccer fields. We just don't. We have the money for 2. That's what the grant application is for, 2. Okay? If you've ever been up the street, approximately 1.5 miles up West Front Street, to the corner of Crawford Corner Road, you will see there are 4 soccer fields there. Okay? 4 soccer fields that at peak capacity. Now remember, mind you, this conceptual plan is for 2. Okay? 4 soccer fields that don't put nearly anywhere close to 100 cars. Okay? I think the lot only probably holds 25. And there's probably 25 or 30 that have to park on West Front Street. So, that notwithstanding, that's 4 fields. Okay? This concept plan is 2. Because we don't have the money for 9. We don't have the money for 4. We put in for a grant for 2. Now let me just discuss the 2, because I've seen the mailer that's gone out to your neighborhood. I know you all got it. Okay, it wasn't disclosed. I've seen the emails that were sent, and I respect it, and I'm glad you're here tonight to hear it firsthand. And I would definitely be happy to share it with you tomorrow, whoever's part of that association also. But understand this. We know what the capacity is. We also know that Stevenson Park, the reason it was selected for a concept is twofold. Because 1, there is a need. Despite what anybody may want to say, there is a need for the capacity, okay? Number 2, it is already park property that doesn't require massive clear cutting of trees, okay? We can go to Lincroft Acres, where right now there are 2 soccer fields. Anybody ever been to Lincroft Acres? 2 soccer fields are there. By the way, you can only get 1 car in and 1 car out at the same time, okay, through the acre. However, we'd have to cut down thousands of trees. Now that might be okay for some people to say, well, go there, cut down those trees. So that's why conceptually this was picked, because you have 250 acres, I believe, is the working contract? 150 acres, of which 2 soccer fields take 1.5 acres, 2 acres, okay? Which will not, we don't have the money for lights, we don't have the money for sound systems, despite everything that was mailed or knocked on your door. We don't have the money for that, nor do we have the plan conceptually for that. Okay? So, the reason the concept plan was there was because of the flat location, because of the need, and because of the fact that we actually own the property. So we were asked by many of you last meeting, and I will address this, and I will pass it over to one of my colleagues. You came and you said, a couple of you said, find another spot. Right? Remember that last meeting? Find another place. This isn't the right place. Find another place. We've looked at our inventory, we've done our, cursory look. We found one potential place. Okay? In Belford. We don't own the property. Okay? Schools own the property. We can't just go on there and just say, hey, this is now, we're going to just put fields or fix these fields and do this here. It's not our property. So we can't do that unless we get cooperation. But understand, like I said last meeting, we can walk away from this concept, and I don't have a problem doing that if we can find an alternate location. I think we may have. We need approval. That's at the Board of Ed. My colleague went to the Board of Ed, he's not on shared service, he asked a question. He can address that later for you. That's on him. But that's the reality. Okay, so no matter what you're reading, no matter what you're hearing, that's the reality. There is no plan to destroy your property values. Because your property values going down hurts us. Hurts my property value. Hurts my tax bill. Okay? We're very cognizant of that. But I just want to make sure that the truth is out there. There's a lot of distortion right now. There's a lot of... I called something last week, and I wanted to last meeting, and I just want to clarify what I said. I used the term silly season. And it's not silly season in terms of you being silly coming up and making this point. That's not silly season. Silly season, what happens between September and November when elections are upon us. That's what silly season is. I I know a few of you went to the freeholders meeting, and my former colleague used a similar term. But I wanted to clarify that point too. So I'm happy to answer any additional questions. Thank you, Mayor.
So thank you. As we proceed this evening, again, what we want to try to do is answer some questions as they come up in comments for what I believe the majority of you may be here this evening for, so we don't have people coming up and repeating the same thing. We can get your answers to you sooner. So before we bring up the next speaker, the Deputy Mayor had alluded to the fact that Committeeman Perry had gone to a Board of Ed meeting and requested another location. So just so that you understand what that location is in the comments as you come up, Committeeman Perry, can you take a moment to speak about that, please?
Sure. I have visited the Bayview school fields where currently the Lincroft flag football is playing on Sundays. There are 2 baseball fields toward the back portion of that property. As Deputy Mayor Fiore mentioned, I'm not a part of the shared services. For those of you, I'll just explain. Only 2 members of the governing body can sit on that commission, so I'm not a part of that. And it was my proposal that we move these and create, through the Township Committee, 2 fields at the school. There are 2 baseball fields that are completely overgrown. The backstops are rusted, the benches are rusted. And I think it could be a prime location for 2 multi-sport fields, lacrosse, flag football, soccer, field hockey, all those items. So I hope that does come to fruition. I hope that we are able, because the Township Committee is willing to put the money into investing in those fields and making that a possibility. We have 600 kids every Sunday playing flag football on those fields, and it's 2 fields and then a diagonal field in the middle. And I think we can do better than that, and I hope we can. And that might be able to provide the rest that our other fields need so that they can be maintained and reseeded, aerated, which they needed to bring them up to par. So that is my proposal, and I appreciate the support of the Township Committee, and I hope to make that happen. Use these facilities for multi-sport and make that a possibility. So, thank you.
Thank you, Committeeman Perry. With that being said, I'll call the next speaker, Margaret Gordon.
Thank you for all your work.
So you're speaking that.
Margaret Gordon, 41 Stevenson Park.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work trying to get another place where we're all concerned about our property values. We're going to live on the lake, and is it going to affect the water and the wildlife in our lake? An important part of our property value. I am against the property.
Thank you for your comments. John Taco.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is John Toko. I'm a resident of Shady.
Thanks, sir.
I think something to read, but the first thing I want to say is that road, West Front Street, no matter what this gentleman said here, is not driving there every day. I am. The traffic is terrific. There are many times you cannot make a turn. There's too much traffic on that road. That is a direct route to the Riverview Hospital. No question that when that road is crowded with people going to bring their children and their visitors to the park, that's going to be called preventing an ambulance from getting down to Riverview Hospital. That's just one thing, but the traffic will be tremendous. And unless you live there, you will not know that. No matter how many studies that you say another place, maybe you didn't need to do it, but here we need to do it. The road is simply too narrow. That's my objection to it. The other thing is, what is the proof that once you start with these two fields, it's not going to expand?
Yeah.
What is the proof? There isn't in writing that you're not going to have lights that are like 50 feet tall like they have at that high school right behind our houses. Those fields will be next to the apartment that I live in, will be no more than maybe 100 to 200 feet. What time will this stop in the evening, during the summer? There's a lot of things that have to do with it. There's a lot of people that live over there. It's not as simple as saying, oh, well, this is our property, we're going to only keep it to two soccer fields, and it's not going to expand. We don't know how things start. It starts small, there's an incentive to make money, these things are going to expand.
There's no incentive to make money.
There are other groups, there are groups coming from Patriot and other areas that'll come down and want to play, but they have their team down there.
They won't be able to do that.
Will that be in writing?
That's already in the ordinance.
Okay, all of these things have to be in writing, that would not be expanded, but, won't go too much further, but one of the places where I think would be the easiest place to do this, that already have fields, is Fort Monmouth.
We know that's not in Middletown.
Okay, but that would be one of the things that could be looked at. They have tremendous fields, there's a lot of open space there. There's a swimming pool facility, I know because the father was disabled there and here, but anyway, that would be the first one. Plus, at Route 35, that could take even more traffic, although there's a lot of traffic on that. But basically, that is what I want to say, and that's my...
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your comments with regard to traffic. I think we did have the administrator comment on that, although I certainly understand your point of view. With regard to expansion beyond two fields, I think the Deputy Mayor had mentioned the one item that everyone has constraints on, which is money. This governing body does not have the funds to expand those parks beyond those two, as in the grant application. Correct, and so you would come back before us if that were to happen again. And thirdly, with regard to lights, there will be no lights at that facility, regardless of what you've read, what you've been told, and it is at dawn to dusk park. And it will not be developed any further than that. So please be clear on that. I know there will be plenty of comments and concerns on that, but we will confirm to you that this governing body is limited. No, it will be dawn to dusk. There will be no lights at this park.
Mayor, can I just say one thing? I just wanted to address it. I didn't bring it up in my last comments, but we are working with the gentleman who brought up Fort Monmouth, and obviously understand your point being that there's already fields there. I'm working right now, thanks to the Township Committee allowing me to spearhead this, on a shared service agreement with Brookdale, which has fields as well. And I'm trying to finalize those details, and along with Mr. Mercatante, our administrator, to bring that into the fold as well. So that if Brookdale is not utilizing certain fields, we might be able to have kids go play, our young athletes go play practice at Brookdale. So obviously that's still in the works. I'm still working out those details, but I just wanted to bring that up because it's obviously a lot closer within Middletown, and we're having that good dialogue. So I hope to bring that to a close fairly soon.
Before we continue, so far you've heard two options. One for off-site field options, other than Stevenson Park. Similarly, a proposal to the Board of Education to utilize underutilized fields there in lieu of the Stevenson Park field. So this governing body is looking at alternate locations. So we've heard you, we agree with some of your comments, and we've listened to you. We're looking at alternate locations as well. So again, this is not an end-all, and this is only a current two-field application at the moment. Next speaker is Diane Disler.
Sure.
Diane Visler, 870 West Front Street, Middletown. My family and I have lived on West Front Street, right next to Stevenson Park, for 32 years. Stevenson Park is a passive recreation park. It's been that way for quite some time. And I strongly object to the Township Committee's plan to build an active sports complex on this redeveloped site. The traffic impacts are there, I see it, I live on West Front Street. It's quite an active traffic area, which would not be a good idea to put a sports complex on the street. The entrance to Stevenson Park is a narrow country lane, and motorists have to cross a single lane bridge. You're not going to get two cars going in either direction. Traffic back continuously on West Front Street. The idea of turning this peaceful site into an active sports complex is disheartening to our family, neighbors, residents of Middletown who have enjoyed hiking, running, boating, fishing, bird watching, and the simple, quiet pleasure of enjoyment of nature at Stevenson Park. Lastly, I'd like to submit this quote by Theodore Roosevelt that was sent to me from Paul Cleese, the principal park planner of the Middletown Park System, from whom the Township Committee is seeking funding to turn this natural site into a sports complex. The quote is, "The lack of power to take joy in outdoor nature is as real a misfortune as the lack of power to take joy in books." By Theodore Roosevelt.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker is Jim Andrews.
My name is Jim Andrews. I live at 11 John Lee Drive, County West Middletown. I have had my paralegal conduct a search of the property for lots and lots that were identified in your project. And the first thing that we find is that the deeds to the Stevenson tract were conveyed by the Stevenson family back some time ago. The most important document with regard to
Sir, you have to speak to the microphone. Speak to the
the most important document with regard to what you are planning to do now is a declaration of encumbrance, which I have in front of me here, which is executed on 8 June 2012. It is signed by Anthony P. Fiore and by Ryan Nelson. That declaration says the following: the local government unit, which is Middletown Township, represents and warrants that all lands described in the exhibit attached to this declaration are held by it for recreation and conservation purposes. Reservation and conservation purposes are in the definition section of the declaration. Recreation and conservation purposes means the use of lands for parks, natural areas, forests, camping, fishing, reservoirs, winter reserves, wildlife reserves, hunting, boating, winter sports, and all of that meaning passive recreation. The four lots.
What do you mean, the word passive recreation in there?
Passive recreation is not in the
Okay, that's what I thought.
right? But there has been an acknowledgement at the September 4, 2018 meeting that an application would have to be made to the the local environment, to the State Environmental Commission to gain approval. This is what it says in your declaration of coverage. This is what it says, if I may. Right after I read that section about it being reserved for recreation and conservation purposes, and I read to you the definition of all of the activities, none of which includes a complex for soccer fields. The local government unit shall not dispose of or divert to use for other than recreation and conservation purposes any lands described in the exhibit attached to this declaration without the approval of the commissioner and State House Commission. Now, it was acknowledged at the September 4, 2018 meeting, from which I'm making the minutes, that that application would have to be made. So what you're proposing to do is to take all of this money, and there'll be other people testifying to the fact that the application form that you are utilizing does not authorize the expenditure of funds for exploratory purposes. It only authorizes the funds for acquisition and construction. Now, I live, as I said, in 11 Bowman Drive. Now, if you look at, this is the map, by the way, that was used by Mr. Mercantante at that September 4, 2018 meeting, identifying your project. And as you can see on the map, I'll show the map to the people here, there are 9 soccer fields identified in this project. All right?
There's 9 locations you can put a soccer field.
Sorry?
There are 9 locations you can put a soccer field. There are 2 soccer fields identified in the project.
Let me address that issue right there. Referring again to the minutes of the September 4, 2018 meeting. In those minutes, Township Engineer Ted Maloney discussed the multi-phase approach of installation of that plenty field. You're saying you are restricted in only considering the first phase. In the minutes of the meeting on this project, Ted Maloney identified the multi-phase approach. And you have what he used to introduce this, a map which has all of
Well, if there wasn't any public outcry, you'd have a multi-phase, sir, but it seems like that most of the... Let me finish that explanation, okay? If you have a park, which, by the way, you referenced, I signed an agreement for something called recreation, not passive recreation, in 2012. Let me finish my statement here, I'll let you continue to go on. But at the end of the day, okay, when Mr. Maloney shows a concept for 2 fields for a grant application, 2, and then we hear that, hey, you know what, we don't even want the 2. Do you think a committee is going to come back and say, we're going to do a phase 2 or a phase 3 potentially? It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. A, we don't have the money for 9 fields. And B,
what it demonstrates is that the Stevenson Park was set aside for the recreation and conservation purposes that I just described. None of those
is soccer recreation, sir? Yeah.
recreation. It's not active recreation.
The word passive is not in the agreement I signed in 2012.
No, it is not. What is in there, and I read the definition, sir, which does not include active recreation, which does not include 2 or 9 soccer fields.
Let me just clarify. So if this property had a restriction so that it couldn't be used for soccer fields, the state Green Acres program would enforce that, and they would tell us we can't do it. So we actually went to the state Green Acres program and met with their staff to talk about this specific project. And they identified nothing in the deed or any kind of encumbrances that would suggest it can't be used for fields. Recreation, soccer is a recreation. It could be used for recreation. Don't shake your head. I'm telling you what the state said, okay? The state of New Jersey, in fact, told us we actually prefer fields than a farm, because farming is not a recreational activity. It doesn't allow public access. So they are very well aware that we're proposing to put soccer fields here, and they're very supportive of the idea to put soccer fields here. There's not a restriction against it. So I can understand if you're opposed to it, just say you're opposed to it. But don't try to suggest that there's some deed restriction that says you can't do it. That doesn't exist.
The restriction speaks for itself. Okay?
I just told you what it says. It says
R in
recreation.
policy means recreation, it stands for recreation. Soccer is
There is a
recreation.
distinction between active recreation and passive.
And that doesn't make such a distinction.
Because it gives you the definition of recreation and conservation uses.
And
The
conservation.
only reference to sports activity is winter sports. There is nothing in that restriction that authorizes you to put that field. It says the opposite. But let me continue on.
Sir, I want to thank you for your comments. We gotta, it's been 5 minutes, so we gotta move on to the next speaker.
Most of that.
It's been 10 minutes.
Sir,
Reclaim your time. Identify the real problem for me.
Go ahead, sir.
They said I live in 11 Garden Drive. Now, the access right now to this park is through West Front Street. There is a one-lane bridge that has been constructed. There's one lane only. The signs that have been put up there say one-lane bridge. Okay, there's no way on earth that you're going to be able to service that location with that one-lane bridge. That point was brought up during the September 4, 2018 meeting. And several people testified as to their concern over that access. Mr. Mercantante, in responding to that, said the following. Township Administrator Anthony Mercantante responded that there is an emergency access road in Shady Oaks to the Stevenson Park. As you can see, that's my property right there. What he's talking about is a trail that is in the Green Acres and abuts my property. It was nothing more than a trail until a year and a half ago when some trucks showed up with the gravel, putting it down, and we were told the only reason for converting that trail into a gravel road was to gain emergency access vehicles, to gain access to the farm, until the bridge was complete. Now, I have spoken...
Sir, look, I've given you additional time. I've asked you to wrap it up. So
Wrap it up right now.
please
I will
respect.
wrap it up right now.
Thank you.
Can't you handle the truth? I have spoken to the attorney who represents Shady Oaks. He tells me, and Mr. Nelson is here, and he can confirm or deny this, but he said a letter agreement was entered into between Shady Oaks and the Township that said you can bring your vehicles in to access that road to improve it on a temporary basis. But once that is done, and once the farmer who is supposedly going to be serviced by this has died, once the bridge is done, then that access road must be converted back to just that an access road that was sealed off. We asked Mr. Nelson to confirm that...
So we discussed that already. We've confirmed that. There's no issue with regard to any additional utilization of that access road.
So that road will never be...
That is a non-issue, sir. That's a non-issue.
Despite what the flyer man said, it's not
Well,
going to be.
the content says in September...
No, he never said that. It's currently been used until the bridge was open. It has no plans to be used in the future, and that is exactly what he said. You're picking out,
I quoted him.
you're picking out.
That's proof, that's in the minutes. If you have a transcript, provide it.
Sir, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Allison Shee, 11. Allison, there you go. Thank you. You'll be able to read everyone's writing.
Yep, sorry. I'm Allison Sheedy, 11 Vista. I'm actually here to comment on 35 Village. I don't even know, I'm sure everyone's here to talk about the park, but just from the heart, I moved here 8 years ago with my husband. He grew up here. We moved here because he told me it was a great place to raise a family. We have 2 kids. You know, there was open space, parks, not a lot of traffic. In the 8 years since I moved here, I've noticed a difference. I'm not from here, I'm from Long Island. There's tons of traffic there. Moved here to get away from that. I don't want to live in North Jersey. I would have moved there if I wanted that. So I'm just hoping that, you know, everyone can reconsider the, I call it a wasteland that's going to be developed there. a retail wasteland. I was in retail for 12 years of my life. And, we see the open space that's not just in this town, and there's other towns that have open retail space. Do we need a movie theater? I don't think so. There's going to be crime. I want my kids to live in a safe area where they can run and play in a forest that's not overdeveloped. I don't know. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Denise Thompson.
Hi, my name is Denise Thompson. I live in the Newland neighborhood, 40 Hilden Court, at the end of the cul-de-sac. My home is adjacent to Stevenson Park. I'm in a unique position here. I see both sides of this argument. I live right next to the park, but I also have two soccer players, 10 and 13. One plays for Middletown Soccer Club, one plays for Untitled. I am very involved. I manage both teams, and my husband coaches. As I speak, my husband and my kids are on the fields right now. We are very familiar and affected by the lack of field space and the quality of the field. But I have a different perspective here. These two fields that we've been talking about, I know that the plan is 9. The full concept plan was 9. These two fields really are not usable for us in the fall without lights. So this is not a plan that would work anyway.
They're not usable on the weekend.
It was for practices, not games. Games are on the weekend.
I never said that we were going to use it for practices only.
You said for practices.
Well, then I misread your email.
Most coaches work during the day, so they're only there in the evenings in the fall. In the spring, we have a lot more light, and we can use a lot more of our fields. So that leaves us, with unusable space. So this phase 1 proposal doesn't help us on the weeknights. We are crunched for space in the evening.
Well, as a coach, I disagree, because these would be fields that you would use during the weekend, so you can then use other fields during the weekdays, which have lights, such as Nut Swamp. And Denise, I'm telling you, you can pull the email up if you want. I'd love to see where I said we're going to use only practice. But ultimately, we've actually gone through a system here, and Mr. Maloney has overseen this, in terms of using practice fields and game fields. As you know, as a Monmouth United parent, the game fields are at West Front Street, right? And we don't use them during, we don't use them during the week, right? We don't use
Fairview during the week.
We don't use Fairview during the week, right? So ultimately, same concept would entail.
So these would be only for games?
Would be the weekend
You can't be
use.
used for practices?
I don't see why you would want to do that unless you had no other field to practice.
So there's a lot of, dancing around whether it should be used for this or it should be used for that. So that's one piece of this. Brian Nelson, I love this constant faces first. It's really
Denise.
I want to make another point before I go on to talk about the other options you've provided. I needed a variance when I built a front porch on my home. I had to notify all the neighbors within, I think it was 200 feet, and get their approval. That was required by the town. I then had to come here, and anyone who wanted to oppose it could oppose it. I received no notice. I live right on Stevenson Park. I think all of these people would have liked a mailer or something, not the fake mailer you guys are talking about or whatever it is, that this is what you're planning. You owe that to your residents. If you're and that could lay the foundation for 9 fields. I know we're talking about it, you're hearing obviously 3,000 additions, but in that 9 fields, it talks about 300 parking spaces. This obviously would seriously disrupt the community, the traffic. There's a ton of traffic at 5:30. I don't know if you've ever driven down West Front Street when we talked about possibly not to practice there. From what I understand, the road requirements, irrigation costs, all this hasn't been fully vetted. I think the full concept plan is why the soccer clubs are huge proponents of this. But that's in my opinion. I think obviously to have tournaments and to be able to do these things down the road, and that's, as a resident, that's where I'm concerned. I live right in this park. I don't want what could be. That's what scares me. I've been made aware of this plan. You guys talked about pursuing the fields at Bayview. I'm a huge fan of that. I said to Tony I'd be happy to help champion that. I will attend the Board of Ed meeting tomorrow night and support that idea. I think that you guys should take some of those fields over. Old Athletic is right across the street, and that's another 2 fields.
That's not the same Bayview and Old Athletic.
Old Athletic is not
Bayview's in
part of that.
Belford, Old
Bayview-
Athletics in Leonardo.
Okay, is Old Athletic?
That's Bay Shore,
But is that's those are 2 fields that would be.
no parking there.
No parking.
Leonardo Road, watch your kids crossing that, cross the street. Okay.
But I think that plan, looking at those options, that is more in line with your motto of taxpayers first. I think that's where you should be starting, and looking to use these fields. I mean, in your email to me, Tony, you talked about these fields. You had said 4 fields, and then, I mean, Tony, you said 2. That they haven't been used in 30 years.
There's 2 fields that are baseball fields right now that you could make 4 small-sided fields.
I think this is a perfect and viable option. Use fields that haven't been used instead of building additional fields.
It's not. It's an option that we need the Board of Education, their full support on.
I agree, and I encourage everyone that's here that is either against the or a proponent of the Stevenson Park to attend the Board of Ed meeting tomorrow night at high school board at 8 o'clock, and I definitely will be there and to give my support for that option.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening, and I hope you pull this grant request.
Thank you.
Shady Oaks, Middletown. I'm trying to build on my public comments at a October 1st meeting, a workshop meeting, and a September 4th meeting, where I make some basic arguments relevant to this issue. Bear with it. I'm going to use, and it can be illogical, and it can be logical. It's called, in the dictionaries, a reductio ad absurdum. You reduce something to absurdity at the conclusion as you extend the process of the reasoning. You can make your own argument that way, positive argument, or you can refute the opposition. So this is a reductio ad absurdum, basically I'm using. I go to the 160 acres of land and 85 acres of water in Stevenson Park, and I see 2 conflicting problems. To me, it's all about money, and for me, you know, it could be other people are interested in the culture of sports and raising healthy children and strong and able to meet the challenges of life at all levels and at all times. But at any rate, my reductio ad absurdum sees that when all the phases have reached their end, with all the debt service and money that will complete the reclamation project of the entire lake, dredging and everything else. And when you finally get 9 soccer fields end to end, maybe with lights, maybe with food stands, maybe with bleachers, maybe with parking. You can see that the debt service, not counting the maintenance costs and the operating expenses long after the debt services are paid off for the soccer field complex and the dredging and reclamation of the lake, you can come out and say, well, bottom line, the debt service for both is going to be $12 million. So now we've got $24 million. You can reduce it to 16, you can reduce it to 12. I don't know, I'm guessing. I'm just projecting, and it seems to me the lake is necessary if it's going to be a recreational area for passive recreation. The disputes about definitions, judges come up with all sorts of definitions, and so the legislatures have been pushed aside. But I see a clear conflict of interest, and I believe the former mayor, now an appointed freeholder, was the director of the Economic Development Authority, and he had an office in Trenton, and he was the point man, I think, in the whole state to develop the free economy, the economy that doesn't get into financial products like Wall Street, or growing the economy for welfare government expenditures out in their free enterprise. And I would think that maybe, I heard you said you were a coach, Mr. Fiore. I would wonder if you would consider, or should you have considered, recusing yourself and voting for this application. I'm just wondering.
So if I have a library card, library decisions too?
And I'm wondering whether other people, maybe over the freehold board, should be recused themselves in voting on the application because they've been the director of the, throughout the state, an office in Trenton of the Economic Authority, Economic Development Authority. Governor Christie gave businesses to keep them in the state or prevent them from leaving the state $8 billion. Okay?
You want me to ask you to wrap up, please?
I'm right there, half a minute.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. $8 billion in 8 years. In the 10 preceding years, there was that kind of aid to businesses, not to leave or to come in, was $1 billion. Okay, and you talk about a bankrupt business here in Middletown, coming from an article in the Wall Street Journal. So I would recommend that the practical end of this, you people should be considering whether you should recuse yourself. I think Tony Perry, committee man Tony Perry, was the director of the staff of Carrillo's office.
Please.
Yes.
Wrap up, please.
I'll be respectful, but I will return at the next meeting, and I will see you, somebody, tomorrow, and I'll finish maybe this talk, okay? Thank you.
Wayne Oldroyd, did I read that properly? Close enough. Sir, thank you, sir.
Bring the mic to you.
Wayne Oldroyd, 27 Dickinson Court,
I had about 10 pages of notes, but I think I'll put them aside, see if I can hit 5 minutes. You guys are in a tough position, excuse me, ma'am. You committee persons are in a tough position. And I say this from the perspective of 40 years as a municipal planner, and silly season is a term in the Midwest as well. But as you face a tough decision, you have a plan. You have a reference point to start with, and that's your master plan. And I've always described this process as I've advised planning commissions and council people that start at the top. It's like a big funnel. You take those concepts and you roll them around, and hopefully you throw in the people's participation, your ideas, and at the end of that process, you come out with something that the community can be appreciated of. Not all of them will ever like it. You know that. But what we have here, in my opinion, to turn it on its head, if you would, is a process issue. It seems to me, as I listened tonight from the other 2 meetings I listened to, that there was some unclarity in the distribution or presentation of the information. So I would suggest, in terms of that process, that maybe you return to your master plan and look at the language where it talks about how the strategies and policies, you're looking at me, you wrote the plan. So you know what I'm talking about, and I think, and maybe you've already done this, but I don't think you have sent a message to the public how you have examined it, and you, frankly, in my opinion, did a good thing and a bad thing. You are honest in the broad scope of your concept. You just put a little plan out there with 2 soccer fields, and then you would be accused of not sharing with the public the ultimate end. It's a two-edged sword, but at least we can evaluate the land use in terms of an ultimate proposal. And I would submit to you, when you look at your master plan on Stevenson Park, the predominant uses that are referred to are conservation, neighborhood parks, passive recreation, and a reference to active recreation as well. In my opinion, we look at the finished complex, I think it fails on the analysis of land use. I think it is the wrong use in the wrong spot. You've heard a lot of people with that opinion. I can go through a lot of details, but I would hope that you would, and it looks like that, Committeeman Fiore, that you are doing that, taking a step back. Take a step back and take the time to look at this input and see what you can do to meet your own objectives and serve the community. And I say this as a planner, I say this as a soccer dad, I say this as a soccer official. I love the game, I think it's great for the youth, but don't sacrifice the integrity of neighborhoods that rely on the peace and quiet that they bought, and the existing development they bought. They're telling you they're concerned about this use, short-term and long-term. Let's sit down and have a more detailed conversation based on the premises of your master plan. That's what I would ask you to do. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. After the last meeting, we did in fact schedule a meeting with the Shady Oaks Association that we will be at tomorrow at 2:30 just for that purpose, to provide more information, to answer questions, and to provide alternative locations for the fields that we propose. So again, after the last meeting, we looked into that. We've already scheduled that, so that's for tomorrow at Shady Oaks.
You asked me a question, I think I got under 5 minutes. May I make another suggestion? It is one issue to talk to body level. Assertiveness comes back to get the right people in the room. You had a woman that's very knowledgeable about soccer field.
Sir, I don't need to interrupt you, but we got to get you picked up on the microphone, so, you know.
Reduce it to a manageable number of people that are subject matter experts and mix all those opinions together at one time. So I'm talking one group of residents, the soccer people, the traffic people. It's a comprehensive process. I ask for you to get all those people in a room together. I'm finished, Mayor. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for the comments, and I agree with what you said in many, not all aspects, and we are, listen, the grant applications are what grant applications are, right? Concepts are what concepts are. The one thing I will definitely go to the mat, in terms of what we have done is looked at our master plan, okay? Because there was another location that the township owned that was more viable, that didn't have the potential to clear cut trees, right, and harm the environment for those who care about the environment. This would have never made a concept, okay, even a concept. So I think to the mayor's point, to your point, we have taken a step back. And if you ask me today, is this going to move forward or not? I think it's a coin toss at best. If you want my view, if Committeeman Perry and I, also looked at the spot, found another spot that's not part of our master plan, but is an alternate location that can work, that can provide a suitable solution for the 8,000 children that depend on athletic facilities in this municipality, I have no problem building a developer. Not one problem at all. I have nothing that ties me to Stevenson Park. Let me be clear. Nothing. Okay, but you have to understand one other thing though. We don't own the land. Okay? You can't just take land, and this is land that we do own. So when he looks at a process, that's how the process, I just want to be clear, I don't feel that process was missed. I feel that maybe conceptually there's a lot of outrage to the process, and I respect it, and I understand. I understand. I'd be sitting there potentially if I had the issues. I respect it, but we're not married to this. And I think that's where I get a little frustrated with a lot of the things that have been spread out about this process. But thank you for your comments. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, just to add to that, one of the things that our master plan and our recreation master plan, both documents do refer to and have for many years is the town's need for facilities that have multiple fields or facilities in a single location so they're not scattered so much around town for a variety of reasons. And one of the things we talked about at the last meeting was that the reason that the plan showed 9 fields, the concept plan showed 9 fields, was because what we're trying to do is plan for the future. As we said at the meeting. What I'm saying is that what I said at the last meeting, if anyone remembers, was we don't need 9 fields. We don't know if we'll ever need 9 fields. And what we need to do, because you don't know and I don't know what the need for soccer field or football field or lacrosse field is going to be 10 or 15 years from now. You don't know. I don't know. So what we showed was what could fit on that property. The township's not going to be interested in building anything more than it absolutely needs. And so that's really the point, is that we need to address what we need now, but none of us know what we're going to need in the future.
The next speaker is Danielle Reed.
Good evening, Danielle Reed, Ellsworth Court. I live at Shadow Lake Village and I've been there about 8 years. I'm also a soccer parent. I was a high school teacher, a government lawyer in Trenton, real estate lawyer for land use. I did properties that were about 400 times the size of this park, and I was also a vice president of a bank, and I'm semi-retired. I would like to say that there are about 2,000 people living at Shadow Lake Village and Shady Oaks. They're concerned about noise, they're concerned about costs for real estate taxes. We know that the new municipal building is going to cost $20 million, and that will raise our taxes. We've already had huge increases in assessments. Our taxes have doubled, and that's really typical. It's especially hard for those who just live on Social Security. Interest rates are going up, so if there is any debt management, that could be increasing. I know from dealing with large properties, you have to deal with not only DEP, but the soil district and studies for flora and fauna. These are a lot of things that need to be done. You do have traffic, you do have legal questions about restrictive covenants, passive use, recreation. I'd like to read more of the documents. I will go to Shady Oaks tomorrow. And I think there are a lot of people who have concerns here. This is 132 acres. It's only 40 feet above sea level, so I'm also concerned about what happens with lakes. We did have that terrible northeaster in December 1992. It was a trifecta of full moon, high tide, and a northeast wind. It was not a hurricane. And we also had 2012 where Oyster Point got flooded out. So we just don't know what's going to happen in Middletown. But that's what I want to say and finish up in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Jamie Kenny.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Jamie Kenny. I live on 12 Bliss Lane, right near Evelyn Road in Middletown.
Thank you.
I oppose this project for many different reasons. This project to me resembles the same private commercial sports complex in Tinton Falls owned by Kelly Partners, which is a private organization, and it's not from the Township of Tinton Falls. So I feel like it's a very close resemblance here. I feel that at this point, a Middletown Park should not be repurposed to what will be a commercial, for commercial purposes, for example, these soccer fields. I have a question for some of you. What percentage of Middletown children will be using these fields?
There are 8,000 Middletown children.
What percentage of children?
How many children are in Middletown?
I'm asking
10,000. So 80% do some kind of recreation.
you. Do you think 80% of our
There
Middletown
are
children?
8,000 children who utilize athletic fields, baseball, soccer, now maybe baseball, take that out there, right?
That's
No baseball.
right.
So,
So
you
you're
want to call it half?
understanding 80, half, so
Okay.
50% of Middletown children.
I'm ballparking.
Okay, well, I'd like to maybe have a good percentage of it.
Well, I mean, it's
At some point.
8,000
Not today,
use,
but at some point.
8,000
Okay.
use the facilities, and there are
Okay.
10,000 children in the school.
Okay, so here are some reasons why I don't want to have this being built. Environmental reasons, like everyone spoke of before, the impact on Shadow Lake and traffic. I feel that this is a want, not a need. I'm a public- I've been in Homedale, New Jersey for almost 20 years, and I teach my second graders this. A need is something that you need to survive, a want is something you do not need, okay? I honestly think that we need to discuss, and I'm going to go to the Board of Ed meeting tomorrow and have this discussion with the Board of Ed, and I hope that you can discuss it with them as well. My friend over here, I forgot her name, you just said, we don't know what we will need in the future. I think that we need more of a different school, right? Bigger schools, and I'll tell you why I feel that way. 29 children in a science class, not really effective. Smaller class sizes make smarter children. You have a larger class size, those children have great small, you keep making
We don't have
mistakes.
jurisdiction over that.
Okay, let me just finish speaking, okay? Look around this township, and you're still smirking. It's okay, because I have 4 more minutes. I'm going to. Look around this township, homes are being built all over. Where are we putting these children? Okay? My children do not play sports. They're into theater, okay? I am not here to discuss about my own personal children. What I am here to discuss is the other children that are under all of our care. Thompson and Middletown South, those children are trying to be on their own teams. There is not enough room for these children to play sports in their home schools because there's too many children in those schools and not enough spaces for those children to play, okay? So I'm asking you tonight, as a teacher and a resident, it is your duty, I believe, with the Board of Education, to help these children be the best they can be. I do not think that building this huge monstrosity, which I do feel, you're going to have 9 fields. You keep saying you don't have money, you will find the money.
$50 million for new schools when we can't build schools. You're in the wrong meeting for that, man. You should know.
I don't care what you said.
I said, where are we gonna find $50 million to
I'm
build
sure,
new schools?
I'm sure we can find it somewhere.
We don't have jurisdiction of that. You should know that.
There's always, and I
We
told that to
don't
my
build-
second
we
graders,
don't build
there's
schools.
always a way.
We don't build schools.
Okay, but that's another discussion.
Okay.
That's not
You're
today.
at the
My
wrong
point
meeting.
is, don't sit out there and BS.
You're
That
at
you
the
don't
wrong
have the
meeting.
money, but you will find the money.
Oh.
I really feel that, okay? So at the end of the day, I really feel that we together as a community need to come together and do what's best for all of the people here, young and old, and make everybody happy and find another resolution for this. Thank you so much.
So before we bring up the next speaker, there's been a couple alternate locations suggested in this evening's meeting. So again, as Deputy mentioned, as members of the committee mentioned, we hear you, we're looking at alternate locations. This is not the only location that we're looking at. So please, as the comments progress, understand that we've acquiesced to that and we are looking at different locations. So this is not an end-all be-all. So the next speaker is Doug Niles. Did I pronounce that correctly, sir?
EOC.
I got to read your writing better.
Sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Doug EOC, 24 Harbor Street.
Thank you, sir.
This is my first time here. It's very interesting, dynamic. Thank you for listening to all the residents, and I appreciate both sides. Both my kids play soccer, one for St. Mary's, one for Middletown. And youth sports in Middletown grows at a rate that exceeds the facility we have currently. Travel soccer, including Middletown and Mount United, have over 1,000 children enrolled, and St. Mary's another 1,000. Bancroft and BYAA have hundreds of youth activities, including soccer. Lacrosse is growing each year, and we just don't have the capacity. The township has 4 facilities currently used, and we rely on not only town fields, but we also rely on the Board of Ed, and we don't get access to the Board of Ed fields ever for our club. And
The varsity.
I'm sorry?
The varsity field.
A lot of them, especially the varsity fields. And we're training during the week 4 to 5 teams on a field. And then it's just not enough capacity. And some of the fields are in bad shape, and we can't close any because the town can't close any, so we're using them over and over again. So I think the Stevenson Park idea is a great concept. If you find a location, I'm all for that. All the soccer players are for that. Soccer's a great sport. 8,000 athletes. I think we need more of it. And whether you find another location or do it there or do it the right way, our club supports it. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Baron Teal. Sir?
My name is Barry Teal. I live at 61 Prince Court in J.B. Oaks.
Thank you, sir.
I'd just like to remark up front that there's a 5-minute limit on us, but there doesn't seem to be the same restriction on your rebuttals, but we'll go back to that later. I want to point out that we agree with you, Mr. Fiore, there is a need on your side, and I think it needs to be filled. We're fully in favor of building whatever fields you need for the kids in town to play sports. That's not our issue at Shady Oaks. The traffic study that you mentioned earlier, you say that the number of cars is not the issue. I kind of suspect that's true. It's not the number of cars there, it's the restriction of getting across that one-lane bridge and building a whole raft of cars backed up for God knows how far. It's going to be an enormous boondoggle there, and if you haven't walked it, come over and see this. We'll walk you through it. We'll show you what that looks like. I've driven on that bridge, I parked my car and took a picture.
so much the fact that you want to do something for the town, and I know you do. It's the placement of where you want to put it. You've heard people here say there are alternatives. You have mentioned alternatives, and we know they exist. We've talked to a number of people checking everything. So the things that you tell us sometimes don't exactly match up with what we've learned. I do want to go over a couple of things that I've learned here. Mr. Carey talked to the Board of Education. It was recorded. I've listened to it. You said at that time, you asked for cooperation with the Board of Education in terms of improving maintenance, repurposing, and expanding the number of playing fields by adding 3 more playing fields at Bayview. That's what I heard. You stated that 2 new fields at Bayview would eliminate the need to build 2 playing fields at Stevenson Park. We're in favor of that. If you can do that, we're happy with that.
We would love your support then tomorrow.
Well, we are trying to do that, frankly. Frankly, we're not at odds here in the sense of the need or what you consider the need. We're at odds literally on just where you're putting it. Think for a moment what it would be like if in your neighborhood, in your home, 100 feet away from where you live, they built 2 soccer fields and used it for sports, right near where you live, on weekends or at night or days or whatever.
I'm a bad example because I live 100 feet from Middletown South.
Well, I guess you chose to do where we are now. And we're just asking, don't add more. I mean, we have enough as it is. I also want to say just one more thing. We've heard comments about who's telling the truth and who isn't. A lot of statements that have been made, misinformation being spread. Mr. Muir, I have to say, I've heard it from you directly, so I know that it's bad, it's there. A social media message dated October 13th. A man claiming to have, quote, spoken at length with some members of the town committee, revealed that the committee members with whom he had spoken stated the plan was in an exploratory phase, that the town was only asking for a grant to help fund the explanation if the project is even feasible to begin with. Well, I just want to know, you probably have to be aware that you cannot use the grant money for exploratory purposes. I know. So my recommendation is, if you're really serious about looking for other places, and I believe you are, then withdraw your application for the grant money and stop this.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker is Carl Mulhausen. Read and pronounce it properly, sir.
My name is Carl Mulhausen, 90 Cranberry Court.
Thank you, sir.
Chedios. Over the weekend, I sent you all detailed email listing my concerns and objections. Me when Snell was kind enough to respond to the sun. Thank you very much. My home looks out on Stevenson Park. I'm perhaps 100 feet away from the field. That will be the field where you're going to the first 2 soccer fields. This is just a concept. I don't understand why you pick the location right next to my property. Why not put it in a central location? If you have to do it. I believe what you really do is you have your plan for 9 soccer fields. The first 2 are going to go closest to the road, and you're going to build another 9, another 7.
It's the flattest land which would have been the least amount of grading. The only reason that selection, if you were at the last meeting, was because that was the flattest land that would need the least amount of grading. Because it was a farm. Grading, because it was the farm. And had irrigation. I understand what you're saying, but that, I'm just answering to you why that specific spot was.
Why pick a location that's closest to shady oaks and not put something more central? You're making it, the first plan goes in and makes my quality of life really reduced. You could have put it in another spot, even on Stevenson, and I don't think Stevenson is the place for this.
fields were, the concept was to put them on the space that is currently being farmed, or has historically been farmed. That's clear, it's flat, it requires little earthwork, it requires no tree removal. Our goal is to try to minimize tree removal. But I just wanted to comment on the prior speaker talking about alternate locations. Because, I don't know if you were here at the last meeting, we had a lengthy discussion about that. And just to summarize again, the township has tried to do this at alternate locations several times in the past 10 years, okay? We have tried to put 2 fields at Lincroft Acres, where there's only 2 fields now. And there was opposition to that. No one wanted it near them, so it didn't happen. But nobody here was at that meeting, okay? We tried to put 2 fields on 15 acres that the township purchased on Middletown Lincroft Road, okay? 2 fields. Everyone was opposed to that. People came to meetings opposed to it. That didn't happen. No one here was at those meetings, okay? We tried, my point is...
That's an assumption. That's an assumption.
Okay.
You don't know that.
Ma'am.
I was at that meeting.
And we tried to put fields on West Front Street, where there's already fields. All we're going to do is convert the fields into multi-sport fields as opposed to being just soccer. There was opposition to that, and that didn't happen. They all said, do it somewhere else. So far, everywhere we've tried to do something, everyone has said, do it somewhere else. And that's the problem. And eventually you run out of somewhere else, okay? So the question becomes, at what point do you try to address the needs of young athletes who want to play? Right, away from you, I understand that. But that's my point, is that, so don't suggest that this is the first shot. This is the 4th attempt to find the location to create some more fields. Okay? Well, you tell that to the kids who don't have a place to play.
They can play in the Stevenson Park without an organized sport.
Yeah, look, there's been no speaking from the audience unless you're up at the microphone. I can't hear you, and everyone can't have the benefit of your comment. So we have the next speaker is Carmella, please. Thank you.
Can't hear you.
I have to commend the Township Committee for being #1 sacred town in the country. I think that's an accomplishment. I'd also like to thank Committeeman Perry for his efforts in trying to find a different location.
Name and address,
Very
please.
happy to work with him.
We need your name and address, ma'am, for the record.
Oh, it's Carmella Millie, Dakota's 13 Honeysuckle Lane, Shady Oaks.
Thank you.
And I also would like to let you know that I also received some of those letters that I was not happy with, and a number of us were not happy for trying to turn something into a political football. We are concerned, okay, Shady Oaks residents are opposed to building 9 playing fields
Hold that microphone, please.
of parking for over 300 cars in a park right next to us. I'm sure the other locations were 65 feet from a number of homes. But we are fully in favor of providing well-manicured, accessible, and safe playing fields for Middletown children. Just like you, who coach and support these sports programs, and the children who enjoy them. If you have heard that we do not support sports in Middletown, you have been misled. So that you understand us, let me say that Shady Oaks and Shadow Lake residents are older and less active. I'd like to add that a number of our residents are over 92 and are veterans of World War II. Our condominium complexes provide a quiet place to reconnect with the natural world of wildlife and landscape of unspoiled beauty. It enables us to revive after years and lives of rearing our children, building businesses, defending our country in wartime, writing books you read,
and music you listen to, and attending houses of worship with you. We believe we have earned the right to the quiet enjoyment of our homes, just as you have a right to expect public support for all the benefits that involvement in sports and involvement in sports activities. We are happy to join with you in finding appropriate sites for recreation facilities in Middletown. But we recognize that there are serious issues of safety, quality of life, and the unnecessary destruction of ecosystems that should be allowed to remain intact. Should a sports complex be built at Stevenson Park, there will be effects to our environment. But we will support any rational plan to promote sports facilities in Middletown. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Christoffel, your name is here. Anything to say this evening?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Martha Christoffel, 121 Cranberry Court. And yesterday, Sunday, I was over at the Fairview Field. They have 5 soccer fields. I was at the soccer games. All 5 fields are completely surrounded with a barrier of trees. You can't see a single house, as I remember. All residential communities are blocked by a barrier of trees and greenery. Which of you are coming to Shady Oaks tomorrow?
The deputy mayor and I will be there tomorrow.
So Mr. Fiore and Mr. Settembrino?
Yeah.
Okay, this is a serious invitation, please. Come to my house at 215, 121 Cranberry Court. It's directly across from the clubhouse. I want you to see what we see. When, I know the flat area you mean that you want the soccer fields in, because we used to watch Sickles farm that land. We have no barrier, no block. We have a few trees with a few vines on the trees. We can see right through to people walking in Stevenson Park. We used to watch them farm directly out my doors, perhaps 100 feet, with no real greenery barrier to where the proposed soccer fields would go. So instead of looking at a map or thinking of the theoretical plans, I would like you to come and actually see how close it is to our homes. Thank you. You wouldn't want it right outside your home. Now, I'm not against kids. I have 5 kids, 8 grandchildren. My grandson was an MVP soccer player as a freshman on the varsity team. I had a coach, whatever you call it, coach, something. One of them, what do you call that? Yes. One of them was co-captain. We're all for soccer. I love soccer. All the girls play field hockey. We're a big sports family. So we're for kids, we're for soccer, but this is an ill-conceived plan. It really is not taking into consideration the needs of the residents. And the traffic issue is not a red herring. It's a serious issue, because when you go one way over that one-way bridge, how are people going to get out? I've heard it said that they're going to go exit out the rear end and Stevenson onto what is that, Dawn Lane?
Just the one way.
So
Well, that will definitely be a
So I
serious
think
traffic problem.
you, Mrs. Griffin, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think you answered the question through the committee, right? And again, I'm more than happy to visit your location. I'm happy to do that tomorrow. I will take I will take your address down prior to that meeting. But you have to understand something also, right? When we said 2 soccer fields, and you're telling me that you have 1 lane in and 1 lane out, I agree with that. Okay, I agree with that concept. we do have experience. And again, it's not 10 feet off the road, it's however many feet off the road before you get to the bridge. But we do have some evidence when we have two fields of having one lane in and one way out in other locations. And I would ask you to go down Orchard Hill Road in Lincroft and go all the way down, and I'd ask you to try to get a car in and a car out of Lincroft Acres at the same time. And you can't do it, right? But there's two fields and there's never been an issue. So I hear what you're saying, but I think your answer, people have asked before, what stops you from 9? Well, I think you've answered the question, what potentially stops you from 9, and that's access. Because we're not going to use or allow access for Shady Oaks, if this ever goes forward. So I think that's something I would like to make sure is ever put at rest, if this ever goes forward. That, I think the question gets answered, right? Why 2 and not 9?
Yeah, I'd like to clarify something about that access road into Stevenson Park from the fire door on the far end of Shady Oaks. That was not, that was taken from Shady Oaks. It was only our president, Doug, I forget his last name, who had the savvy to go, wait a minute, you can't just take our property. 20 feet of that access road is property of Shady Oaks. So Doug, when he was president, said, well, let's, at least we signed an easement. So that now there is a contractual easement between Middletown and Shady Oaks, which is respectful to Shady Oaks. But it was not respectful the way that 20 feet was just taken without asking us. Anyway, thank you for your time. Thank you.
Kate Andrews.
Kate Andrews, 11 Donnelly Drive. When I first read about the proposal, I asked myself, why wasn't I notified? My home is on a lot adjacent to Stevenson Park, and over the years I've received numerous certified notification regarding the park. I've come to realize that the committee did not want the affected residents to have input. The public notification was strategically placed prior to Labor Day weekend, a time when many are away on vacation or hosting guests. The required public hearing was held 3 days before the grant application submission deadline. Most likely, the grant had already been written. My question are, the Township Committee received the application in April or May. When was the decision made to apply for the grant? What project elements are identified in the grant? Does the timetable submitted include the time required to have the state approve the change from passive to active recreation? The application is to include negative effects as well as positive. What effects were identified? I'd really like an answer to that question. Were any? Who's looked at the grant proposal?
Our administrator has reviewed the grant proposal, but as I mentioned, the deputy mayor and I will be at Shady Oaks tomorrow.
I'm not a Shady Oaks resident, sir, and it's closed to the public. I'm actually asking these questions because the proposal, the grant proposal application requires these elements.
Sure.
Is that proposal, the grant application, available for us to review to see the full scope of the plan?
Of course.
Okay, well, what negative effects were identified? Who developed, who submitted the application, who wrote it?
Well, we have a township housing consultant who prepares grant applications, and we submit all the required documentation to the county, Parks Commission, and they review it. I mean, the timing is based on their schedule, the deadline when the grant is.
You had that application in April or May. I'm asking when the decision was made to apply for grant.
There was a resident in there till what, July? There was a resident in Stevenson Park till what, July?
Yeah, I mean, it was once the house became empty, which was over the summer, we determined that now we could go ahead and utilize the park for other uses. So it wasn't April.
Well, the application is received by the township in April of next year.
Well,
The county sends it out in April, May.
Yes, they do.
It's in their application.
That's
I have
correct,
the
but that-
application.
but we usually don't select a grant or a project to apply for too much later than that.
So if you were thinking about it back in July, August, why was the hearing put so close to the deadline?
Because August is one meeting before the deadline. You answered the question.
No, the hearing was in September, 3 days before. Well, I mean, okay, so this is why we feel you have not been transparent with this process. Okay, and I think, you brought up this miscommunication. Okay, we have people talking off the record to local residents and saying one thing. We have Freeholder Scharfenberger on the record at his meeting saying, you're going to be so happy to hear this, the Township Committee has found a solution to the problem. Well, you have a proposed solution, you don't actually have a solution. We hope you are able to pursue that solution, but you don't have a solution. So we have politicians saying to us, don't worry, this is taken care of. This is not transparency. This is people telling people what they think we want to hear. Entire concept, all 4 phases, what's in that plan down the road? Because while you might not have the money now, we have already gone on the record and said there might be a need down the road. The residents who will be affected have a right, and they should know what the full concept plan is.
I think we were very transparent in that.
Well, I disagree. I'm a resident and I think this room is filled with people who don't share that.
As the administrator said, if we would have just said 2, and then that would have been all that would, from a potential full concept, which you're asking for, we put in a grant application for 2, but we gave you what you asked for.
Okay, so does the concept plan that was submitted with the application show all phases?
No, it just shows 2 fields.
It shows 2 fields, it doesn't show anything down the road? Isn't that a grant requirement, that they have to show I believe it is.
If there's a definite plan for future phases, you can show it, but that doesn't mean you're committed to doing those. You're not required to doing those. You're not committing to doing any future phases.
Okay, so we'll talk to the people at the county clerk system and go over that with them and get clarification on that. What dollar amount does the application show for full construction costs?
I think the amount was, for the one, I think the grant amount is
Grant $250,000.
I know the grant amount is, I'm asking what does the dollar amount show for the full construction cost?
I don't remember what the construction estimate was, it was a little over $1 million, I think.
Okay, so you see, we come to meetings and we can't get information.
The grant application is very public. I mean, anyone could have gotten that since September.
What is the anticipated time frame for phase 1?
We have to be awarded the grant, you would consider.
A lot of things have to happen. The town would have to, number one, be awarded the grant. Then the township would have to adopt a capital budget sometime in 2019 to put the rest of the money in place to actually build it. So it would be well into 2019 before decisions made about whether to go ahead and fund the fields.
If the grant is denied, the plan is also tabled?
Not necessarily.
So, ma'am, I'm going to ask you to wrap up your comments, please.
I think you would have to get money from other sources, right?
Why was there no input from the environmental committee prior to applying for the grant? Is that always the process?
Yes.
Okay, so the process is apply first and then get the facts?
Ma'am.
I'm finishing. I'm going to finish. Did the Open Space Committee have input prior to applying?
The Open Space Committee, neither the Open Space Committee or the Environmental Commission had anything to do with us making grant applications. That's not their role.
You're making plans to disrupt the environment and to put open space, to transform open space, and you're not consulting the committees that are your advisory boards? Thank you for letting me finish. It appears the process has been handled with very little input and very little transparency. Thank you.
Frank, what do you have?
It's okay.
Frank, I 16 Middletown Court. You got right back down.
Tough to read this, tough to read the handwriting.
A question. The grant is for $250,000, is that correct? That's the request.
Yes.
That's the request.
Yes.
And it has to be matched by money from Middletown.
Yeah, right.
From us.
Yes.
From my money. Well, the county grant money is money too. Right, okay. That's clear. That's spread out. A couple of things. I'm delighted at the possibility of alternative sites. Was it interesting to have someone up there say this at the last meeting? No one said anything about it.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Another thing, the comment that 2 fields would be built was never mentioned last time. It was 9. Yes, excuse me.
The grant application, sir, to clarify, is for 2 fields.
Oh, the grant, but the discussion was for 9, not for 2.
The discussion was for 9 if we went through 4 phases of the future, which some people wanted to clearly see.
So you're talking about the future plan
Which could
of
be
expanding the 2.
Which could be 50 years from now.
Oh, right.
It could be.
No,
You don't need to build.
We know that doesn't happen.
Sir, you don't need to build 9.
Don't interrupt me.
I'm addressing your question.
No,
sir.
you're not.
I'll give you the extra time. I'm asking Mary to give time. You don't need to build 9 when you only need 2. Because committees should also be looking from a master plan perspective of 50 years potentially into the future. And maybe you never have to do that. You may not have to build, no, I don't mean that, I don't mean that to you. I mean maybe you don't have to build 9 in 50 years. That's my point.
I think, obviously, I'm opposed to the site, I'm not opposed to soccer fields. I think it's wonderful that we could work with the Board of Education. That would be terrific. But for your person here to say that a traffic investigation is worthless, I think is a stupid comment.
Shouldn't we be hearing you speak in the microphone instead of...
He's asking me to read a name.
Excuse me.
Okay, all right, what is my turn?
Ma'am, stop.
Yeah, I don't know.
Thank you. You can speak when you come up to the microphone, and then we can talk. Thank you. I can't read the writing. Mary Ann, 26 Harvard.
Yeah.
I can't read the rest of the map.
I think you know.
I'm sorry. I just can't read your writing.
I know it's awful, I'm tired all the time. My name is Mary, I live in Edmonton.
Thank you, ma'am. Just trying to read.
Okay. And I guess I'm just going to echo what the gentleman just said. I can't believe you actually stated, Mr. Mercantanti, that we don't need a traffic study. I like you, you're a really nice man, I have to say. You helped us out a long time ago, and I never forgot that. This is kind of insulting to us, that you don't need a traffic study. The traffic on West Front Street, and I live it every day, is terrible now. It takes us a half hour, most times, to get over that new bridge to Red Bank. Can you imagine? Even with just 2 soccer fields, because it's not just going to be, you're playing on 2 fields. You're playing on 2 fields all day long, all weekend long, and most likely practices, because I've come to the other meetings and I've heard what the soccer people have said. They practice all the time, and they want it for multiple uses. There is no way this is not going to create tremendous traffic, so please, please do the responsible thing before you even go any further and order a traffic study. You're going to have to have it. I also want to bring one other point. I'm not going to reiterate everything I've said in the last few weeks. Just one other thing. All this misinformation that people have been given. The flyer that I've seen, all it was really a copy of the conceptual plan that you put up that people took pictures of at the September 4th meeting. That alone, just that information, terrified these people. That you didn't even need words other than that photo. So really, there's no other information out there that they're getting that's false. Well, then somebody else, I have no idea where that came from, because the flyers that I have seen were just really copies of what you put forward in the September 4th meeting. Everything was factual as you presented it, and it was terrifying to us, because we already live in an area that has a lot of traffic, West Front Street and Half Mile Road. And I want to make a point at something you said. Well, first of all, I hear a contradiction today between, oh, we might have an alternative, and then we've looked all over the place. We've tried 4 other places, and pretty much the message is, tag, we're it. We're the ones that get stuck with these things. I wish you do have an alternative. But honestly, I'm a little worried that that's the red herring, because I know, Mr. Perry, you did go to the Board of Education meeting, and you mentioned, and here's another contradiction, you mentioned Bayview, and Mr. Fiore mentioned Belford. What is it?
Well, Bayview is in Belford, ma'am.
But it's
Bayview is in Belford.
It's the Bayview School you're talking about.
It is in Belford. It's the heart of Belford.
Okay, it's the Bayview School.
Yes, it is.
And you brought this up to the Board of Education, which I have to say, I also am a little offended by, having volunteered for them for so many years. You're constantly throwing them under the bus. You're constantly criticizing them. I mean, actually, Mr. Arno, you said at the September 4th meeting that you do not have a willing partner in the Board of Education.
That's true.
So that's not what they said on the tape that I watched. They said that they have always been willing to work with you, and that they did work out a problem that occurred, something with the flag football on Thompson, they had to reseed it, and then they offered you Bayview, and it worked out very well, and they did accommodate you. So that's not true. They are a willing partner. But the correct place to go, what I understand, because I took your father-in-law's advice and I did my homework, I contacted a member when I went to the freeholders meeting. I contacted a member of the Board of Education who's on the Shared Services Committee, and he said, that's the venue you need to go to, the Shared Services Committee. To bring all these people out to the Board of Education meeting isn't going to accomplish
The
anything.
Shared Service Committee has 3 members of the Board of Ed. We need 5 votes, ma'am.
And I'm sure if you work with them, they'll give you votes. I'm
Okay.
sure they will. Well, maybe
You
they'll
need-
try
you
if you
need-
try to be convincing, but you didn't go to the Shared Services
Oh, I've been
Committee.
to Shared Services meeting.
You went to the Board of Education.
I'm on the
I
Shared Services
understand,
Committee.
excuse me, I'm speaking, you're gonna tell me to stop soon. The board member said that it's never come up. You've never mentioned Bayview, so how could they even evaluate it? And yet, they had a Shared Services Committee meeting scheduled for October 9th, and you canceled it and did not reschedule it.
It has been being rescheduled.
It has not been rescheduled. So I really honestly wonder if that is not something you just threw out there because, as you call it, silly season, you're worried about upsetting all of these people here right before your election. And I think, honestly, I'm only going to say what we're doing. I think the only thing that's going to make these people happy is that you withdraw your application to Greenacre and you abandon because we don't feel that you've been upfront. We don't feel you've been transparent from the way this whole thing has come about. From the September 4th meeting, which none of us knew knew about except a handful, yet you had all these soccer people telling you how happy they were, that they wanted this complex. They were upset about the fact that they don't have what other towns have, like tin balls, like in Homedale. They want something they can be proud of. But this can't be it. This is not an appropriate location. I've told you that before. So please consider and really work with the Board of Education if that's where your options are. But please, please, we want you to withdraw this application and to put an amendment to that deed. Thank you very much.
No, I'll continue.
Thank you. Mr. Granovich.
Jim Granovich, 35 Red Oaks Lane, Locust. My primary reason I'll get to shortly, but really didn't expect to hear from here tonight. And what I'm about to suggest is going to probably open something else up in terms of old wounds. I know it as the town center. Other people have a project on Route 35. And I've heard Mr. Fiore mention about owning the land. Now, I'm assuming when you say we, I'm not saying exclusively you all up here, referring to the larger community. I just want to be clear about that because it can be heard two different ways. I want to clarify this. Well, municipality in the sense of the people that are the municipality of the people that are speaking here tonight. Is that okay? That's good. And just a quick aside on the term red herring, because it gets used a lot, and Mr. Mercantante used it, and I think in the context of a study, what was being requested there is not necessarily a red herring. The etymology behind red herring goes back to, just bear with me for a second, when the hounds chased the fox, and to mislead the fox or confuse the hounds, they would throw red herring in a bag and change the stink or the smell. And so the term red herring is really about confusing people or the issue, and I don't think people here looking for a traffic study.
Exactly what I was.
Okay, they weren't looking to confuse the issue, I don't think. They were looking for more clarification around the issue. Just for the information's purposes.
I get it. And
Okay.
that explanation is exactly the context, because my point is, what if the traffic study comes back and traffic experts say there's really no impact on this?
Well, that's, but see, but then you've done your point. Right.
My point is that costs money, and it's not going to change one person's mind.
But those people are asking you, no, but I'm assuming that based upon your experience, you have a lot of it in planning, and you've done these things before, so on and so forth, and that's what you're offering to these people. But at the same time, they're asking you to do that again. So I think you've done your duty in telling them what you think about it, but I think that there's a larger issue here, and the issue is to go forward with the traffic study. And so I would suggest doing that, because I think that would go a long way for the people of the larger community as well. So that's not what I was here for, but that's what I've been hearing this evening, and I would suggest that you all at least give that some thought. Now, my main purpose here is I received an email, and this is going to be directed at you, Mr. Perry, specifically, okay? And other people running for office and anybody else that may want to jump in. I tried to figure out how it got to me, and the content of the email, having been around the town since 1998, and knowing Mr. Burns quite well, and it was directed at him, and it was from some organization I never heard of before, and nobody really signed off on that. And I kind of looked at it, and I said, and kind of in a sense of silly season, or I don't think it's silly season, because elections are very, very important as far as I'm concerned, and they shouldn't be brushed aside with the word silly. They should be considered serious season, because it's serious. And so with that said, the only person I can direct this question to with any kind of sense of confidence is Mr. Perry, because in terms of the unsubscribe on that and going back to that, it really links to a social media account of yours. And so, just from my perspective, what's very important to me when I'm looking at an election is the character of the people running. And I've mentioned this before, about 7 years ago, and I haven't been here for about since then. And character, if you look at and trace that back, it's basically how a person is engraved. It's how they're dyed, it's how they're stained, and it happens when you're young and it moves forward. And it's very often indelible. And so that's really critical to me. It's critical in terms of everybody sitting up there who's elected. What kind of character does a person bring to this community who's going to be the steward, not the owner, the steward of this community? We're stewards. And so I'm going to ask you directly, were you in any way, shape, or form associated with that email?
I did not write that email. So.
You did not what?
I did not write that email.
I didn't ask if you wrote it, very specifically, because I listened very carefully to the language. Were you in any way, shape, or form the truth, the whole truth? Now, I'm going to throw out the term mendacity here at the same time. Now, mendacity is a form of lying. It's a very particular form of lying. It's where something isn't exact. If something is omitted, and that omittance allows you to say no. So with that in mind, well, that's fine, I'm close to that, because so in any way, shape, or form, did you have anything at all to do with the generation of that email, or did your father-in-law have anything to do with that?
Okay, first off, no.
Okay, which question?
To the second part,
Okay.
I'm just going to put that out there. Second, I did not write that email.
I didn't ask you. They asked you. Okay, go ahead.
Just finish real quick, okay? I did not write that email. And as I stated to the folks that asked me about it, I went back to them and I said, I'm looking into it. I looked into it. And when I spoke to members of those teams, of our team, right, I asked them, where did this information come from? Things of that nature. The question came about, which was totally inaccurate, that I had illegally, the campaign had illegally obtained these email addresses, and that is 100% not true.
What is,
I went, if you don't mind,
Mr. Gretifax.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Committeeman Perry.
Sorry.
One moment, please. If you'd like to ask a final question, I'm sure Committeeman Perry will entertain it. If you can please finish up
I'll do that.
as I've asked you. Thank you, sir.
Are you saying ask my final question here? Or should allow me to
If there's something else that you'd like to ask, then I'd like to ask Committeeman Perry to answer that question, and we'll be done.
Okay, so what I'm really trying to be clear about here is it seems as though you're looking at your team, your campaign team, and you've explored this issue with them.
Yes.
And what I'm hearing you say is that your campaign team came back and said they had nothing to do with it.
That's not what I said.
That's why I'm asking for clarification.
What I stated was that these email, the addresses were obtained through the...
I'm not asking about the addresses, I'm asking about time.
Let's go.
Again, if you will just allow me to just finish, okay? I'm just going to try and answer the question for you. And that is that there was misinformation stating that the campaign had taken emails illegally, and that is 100% not true. I did not state in any way, shape, or form that didn't occur. What I said was, I was looking into it, I was speaking to my folks that are out there that help me on a daily basis, okay? And you know it too, that you have campaign volunteers, people that are consulting for you, things of that nature. I went to them and said, asked them about this email. And I asked them where the addresses came from. They were obtained through the Open Public Records Act, which is legally, 100% legally obtained through the Open Public Records Act. So, my concern here is that this is continually being switched around into questions instead of asking about the information within it. And that is my concern.
Well, I'm concerned about the information within it as well. But what I heard you just say, that the campaign is responsible.
Don't make me raise my voice again. I've asked you to stop. This is not an inquisition. You're done. Please sit down, Mr. Gretifax. Please sit down.
Mr. Mayor, if I can make a comment. Clearly there are volunteers everywhere, and again, to Mr. Perry's point, okay, there was no, open public records are open public records, no law was broken. If we want to speak about campaign laws being broken, let's speak about the volunteer who was arrested yesterday for stealing 100+ campaign signs.
Red herring.
Red herring. Let's talk about the man who today was a volunteer.
Red herring.
Who was in jail. Over it. So let's not throw stones there and call it illegal. Red herring all day long, Mr. Granovich. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a final speaker on the list, Regina McElroy.
Excuse me?
Ma'am, I'll be happy to call up anyone else at their request on the completion of the list that I have here.
I was on the list. Skip. Linda Mulhausen.
There are 2 mall houses.
Ma'am, that's fine. Once I'm done here, I'll be happy to call you up. There's anyone that's here can speak for the 5 minutes, no problem. Ma'am?
My name is Regina Makowitz, 47 Foxwood Run. And for the benefit of Tony Fiore, my name is not my dear. My name is not political operative. That was on Facebook. Berate and berate. Every single person who comes up here who has something that any of you guys don't want to hear, it always is interjection. So my question is, I would like to find out how I can find information on the rules and regulations of conducting a township committee meeting. Because at 9:08 tonight, Mr. Nelson, counsel for the township, leaned over to Kevin Santorino, mayor, and said something which was not audible and able to be picked up on the microphone. At 10:06, I said, hey, what did you say? Because then Mayor Santorino talked to Mr. Fiore. At 10:14, Mr. Fiore said something to Mr. Santorino. I have observed this type of behavior at other township committee meetings. And I thought that these type of meetings were public, and that you had to speak into the microphone, because if I have to speak into the microphone for everyone to be heard, then I would think that that same rule applies to you. So I want to know where I can find out these rules and regulations. And just one more thing in that thing. Sometimes there's a court stenographer here. So I want to know if the court stenographer is not here, or whatever the title is, the stenographer. Is anything that everyone says here recorded and can be transcribed and played back at a later date? Because there seemed to be an issue where Mr. Nelson had said in regards to a different meeting that the person had cited meeting minutes and not a transcription. So if this meeting does not have any transcription, then really you're saying that none of you are accountable to anything that you said.
So thank you for your comments. I'm going to ask the council to reply to that, please.
So to answer your question, the meeting's already recorded. People can take those recordings and generate transcripts by certified court reporters.
Can I just ask a clarification?
Sure.
I wanted to know if Middletown committee, I don't know what the right words are, not the person in the back of the room, or not the person on their iPhone. So anything we've said tonight, I can find a transcription for?
No, not a transcript. Let me finish, and then you'll understand, because, so the meeting's recorded. The meeting recordings can be transcribed. Anybody can, under the Open Public Records Act, request a recording of the meeting, as happens almost every single week, somebody requests it. The clerk prepares minutes. The minutes are not a transcription of the meeting. The minutes are merely the clerk's notes from the meeting. So when people cite to the minutes are not a transcript. There's a major distinction, which is why sometimes when certain matters are being discussed that are the subject of litigation, litigants in those matters will sometimes bring court reporters that sit here and stenographers so they have a certified transcript for the purposes of litigation. So for example, I believe it was the hearing on the Mountain Hill site, the Surface Liquids Redevelopment Plan, you saw a stenographer here. That's a matter that's in litigation, and I believe the stenographer that was here was brought here by the developers, attorneys, okay? So that would be a
So that's
transcript.
provided by the township committee.
No, that's, anybody can do that. If
And
you
then
wanna
just-
have a stenographer, they can sit there if you wanna pay them.
And if someone wanted a transcript of this meeting or any township committee meeting, they would have to make a,
They would have to pay them to have that generated. They could get the recording for free under Oprah, or maybe for some nominal fee for the CD or something, but they would have to generate their own transcript from that recording. And there's certified stenographers that can do that from a recording, which is why the mayor at these meetings makes sure that everybody speaks into the microphone so that it's properly transcribed. Now, I know where you're gonna go with your next question. I'm gonna answer it, I know exactly where you're going. I sit next to the mayor so that if he has a legal question that he needs to consult with me on, we can do that under attorney-client privilege, okay? Usually it's just, can you read this name off the list or something like that, but that's why I sit here, and that he can do that. He can ask me a question if he has a legal question.
at 9:08 p.m. tonight, you instigated.
Yes, sometimes I will suggest something or try to answer if somebody asks a question.
So the
And I will
public is
sometimes,
not privy to.
no, because he'll use that information to answer a question. If somebody has a question, I will try to help and advise my client about that issue. So if somebody asks a technical legal question, I'll say, do you want me to answer that or something like that? And that's perfectly allowed.
What about conversations or notes between township committee members? Maybe not in this meeting, but I have observed
I was
other
helping
meetings
him
where
read
people
the
write
name.
notes, go.
Sure, and I'll write a note to the clerk or the administrator.
I was helping him read
Are we
the
not privy to those types of communications?
Oh, well, in my case, they're attorney-client privilege. Most of the-
Well, I understand that, but in
I
the
mean,
case
so
of
that's fine.
township.
For 10:14 p.m., I was helping him read the name of, I believe it was either Doug Niosi or Marianne Clignan, which he couldn't read, so let me clarify for you.
Mr. Fury, you always take off the opposition to me, and you're never kind to me on Facebook.
Ma'am, you're a cyberbully is what you are.
ask you.
You stalked me on Facebook and you bullied me constantly. If we were in middle school, you'd probably be expelled.
I wrote something and you called what I wrote crap.
You're a cyberbully, ma'am. The classic definition of a cyberbully. You are a cyberbully. When it comes to me, if we were in middle school, you'd probably be expelled.
So, what was done to me on Facebook gave poetic license to
Which is
other
why you were banned
people
from that group where you're not.
on Facebook to continue using the terms that a township committee member used against me.
You
Poetic
continually
license.
harass me, ma'am, on social
In
media.
psychological terms, psychology is called
Continually
crowd
harass.
mentality.
Continually harass me.
To the point where on the next day, a person called Charlie Steiniger on Facebook continued to use those terms against me, to which I selected the harassment button. Then, just recently on another one, Andrea had said to me, Tony Fiore is right, you are a political operative.
Ma'am, please,
So,
ma'am, one moment. You're bringing up things that are on social media. Is there something that this government...
yes, I would like to say
Is there
something to
that this
you.
government...
Yes, I would like to say something to you. Right, so I'm going to answer your question and your question.
I'm not interrupting you. I'm going to speak, and then I'll ask you to speak. So please let me speak. So, is there something... This governing body does not control or police social media. Is there something in your comments that this governing body can help
Yes.
you with or answer your question?
Yes. So, one of the reasons I wanted to know where I could find out the rules and regulations of conduct of a township committee and its members, is to find out how does it extend to that, because we know in this day and age that we have to be ever evolving with our rules and regulations to address things like texting, Twitter, Facebook. So is there anything, my question is, and I want to be fully prepared the next time I speak, is to find out what are the rules and regulations that you guys have to go by, so that I know, and I do apologize when I was sitting here that I didn't call out, but I wanted everyone to see that there was private discussions. So, again, if I went to what office tomorrow, where would I go to find out? Because I have a it's very selective about how long you let someone talk, how long you let your responses come back. And if it says somewhere in writing, 10 minutes, I'll abide by that. And if that's an arbitrary
then I think that anyone who gets up to address the township committee should be allowed to say their piece. Yes, Mr. Nelson, you just mumbled something under your breath. What was that?
It's in our ordinance.
Everything gets addressed here. Okay, so please, everything gets addressed here. Number one.
So ask him, what did he just say under his breath?
It's in our ordinance, is what I said.
But you didn't say it into the microphone or no one could hear it. That's the point, these discussions go on between you guys.
Okay, I'll make this quick and clear. Number one, at the beginning of the public comment session, we do note that everyone's limited to 5 minutes. And there's been multiple occasions that I've permitted, and the clerk does advise me when the 5 minutes is up, so there's no red or green signal that comes up, but she does advise me when that's up. But it's at my discretion to let that continue until the question gets answered, until someone finishes their thought. So it's not a strict 5 minutes, but it's approximate, so as many people that are here that want to speak can speak. If we let everyone, if we let everyone go on as long as they would, everyone here wouldn't have the opportunity to speak, and that's paramount to these proceedings. Okay, so understand, man, please, you've interrupted me half a dozen times already. Give me the opportunity to finish, and then I'll be happy to hear you speak. Okay? So we set that at the beginning in order to maintain order in these meetings, in order to let everyone speak, in order to give everyone equal opportunity to be heard, and that is paramount to make certain that we can hear as many people as we can. Similarly, when you speak as a speaker, or there's a speaker there, or we speak, if we don't speak over each other, we can understand what each other says and provide intelligent responses to your questions. So, with that being said, that's how we talk about the 5 minute period of time, and it's not a strict 5 minutes. It's at my discretion to make it a little bit longer if someone's trying to finish their thought.
So again, coming back to where can I find the rules and regulations that guideline a township committee meeting? Where could I find those?
We adopt a set of rules and regulations at every reorganization meeting, January 1st. The reorganization meeting in January, we have standing rules that we adopt each year that set forth the processes at public meetings. So you can get them.
But where can I get them? I went on the town hall website, I did a search on township committee meetings, rules and regulations, and nothing came up.
It's probably not on the website, but contact the clerk's office. You can get contact the clerk's office, you can get that. It's adopted as a resolution in January of each year.
But I have to Oprah that because I had asked for an Oprah request last year, and I wasn't even given the favor of a no.
For that?
No, for something different. So that's what I'm asking is, if I asked for a copy of this information, would I have to Oprah it, or was it readily available to the clerk?
Yeah, you should file a request. That's procedurally, that's the right way to do it. That's not our idea, it's the state's idea.
I just want to know the procedure.
That's the best way.
Great, thank you. And, thank you for your time.
Great, thank you for your comments. Linda. Just to let you know on the list that's here, for some reason your name was crossed out, but again, we'd be happy to hear anyone that's here. So, can we have your name and address, please?
Yes, Linda Malthausen, 110 Manchester Court, in Shadow Lake Village.
Okay, thank you.
I'm very glad tonight to hear that you have alternative locations for this soccer complex that you're checking out. That you're trying to find another location because, in my opinion, the Stevenson location is a non-starter. Stevenson Park is one of the few remaining places that people can go for the enjoyment of nature, totally undeveloped. Many studies suggest that exposure to natural settings have important stress reduction and restorative effects that benefit the human psyche. I think as a walker in Stevenson, I found that to be true. And a few other people have mentioned how it's like going into an oasis of tranquility. I think you're talking about need. That isn't need. That is a human psychological and emotional need. I hope that it could be preserved. I also just feel
Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Stevenson.
Mrs. Stevenson. She looks.
So as a Middletown resident, I strongly protest the sacrifice of this precious natural resource. I protest the negative impact on restaurant street traffic, which I think is really not arguable and in any real sense will have a negative impact. It's already very congested. I protest denuding the natural meadow areas into barren fields that will require ongoing landscape maintenance and chemical applications, I'm assuming, adding to the burden of harm to Shadow Lake and the Navasink River watershed, which Shadow Lake feeds into the Navasink River. I protest the decline in real estate values for homeowners in Shady Oaks and nearby areas, and the noise pollution that will destroy peace and tranquility for residents who bought their property with the understanding that the Stevenson tract was just a certain space. Whether it's 9 fields, 4 fields, 2 fields, 1 field now, or 5 years later, or 10 years later, there are going to be problems. There will be trash and food litter left on the fields and carried or blown into the woods and the wetland areas. Cars, I know you say this won't happen, but cars will undoubtedly trespass on the Shady Oaks Road to try and find quicker ways to get in, other than that one lane bridge that leads into Stevenson. And any insult to injury, I expect that my taxes will go up one way or another to fund this venture. Now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I happen to be alive then. So to conclude, I would vigorously protest this project, ask you to withdraw that grant and stop the project right in its tracks. Thank you.
Ms. Beck, we just want to give you the resolution number that the council advised me. Here. So it's resolution 18-53. So you can request that by Oprah for the information you're looking for.
Thank you.
It's also on the website. So that concludes the list I have here. Is there anyone else in the public that wishes to be heard? Yes, ma'am.
Me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I was fortunate, I'm Valerie Marnie, I live at 941 West Front Street. If you're not familiar with that, I'm directly across the driveway to Stevenson Park. So people talk about what it's going to do to their home value. Well, nobody will ever buy my house if this happens. I'm sorry, I wasn't planning on talking, so I just quickly wrote down a few things that I didn't mention last time, and of course, now I have to see it. I want to thank you for researching alternatives. That's almost reassuring, except you said it was a coin toss, and I can't sleep at night with a coin toss. So I'm still pretty concerned about it. My mother, I just told her about this. She was planning to come move in with me, and now she is afraid to, because she's afraid for me, because it's so very scary pulling out of my driveway, which would be the same situation of everybody leaving the park. I actually, yesterday, almost got hit, and my first thought was, oh my God, if I got hit, maybe I could be on that traffic report, and maybe they would look more seriously about how dangerous it is. And when everybody's talking about traffic report, I don't want a traffic report of how many cars there are, because it is super busy, everybody knows that. I want to see how many accidents there have been. And I know there's a way to get that, to request that, and it takes a little bit of time, and it's going to take a little bit more time than this meeting you have. But we need to know, because I've personally seen 5, 6, 2 fatalities, pull people out of their bloody cars, and my in-laws who live on the next driveway have had their retaining wall knocked down 3 times.
Just to clarify with our administrator, you can request that information with regard to. So you can request that information with regard to the traffic and any incidents at that intersection.
I would love to see, just from half mile drive to the train to
No, I'm saying
Studio.
that you can put a no request for that, and that will be provided to you.
Okay, I did understand that, I heard it takes a long time, about a month to get it back.
10 days, man.
Okay, well, wouldn't you guys be interested, when you have done that already? Considering what's going on here?
We've spoken.
It's not your job, I'm the teacher. Okay, also, I wanted to just mention that regarding, there's been a lot of innuendo that some kind of sinister flyer has been going around. There's nothing sinister about citizens trying to be well informed about what's going on in their community. The bridge, obviously I go over that bridge almost every day. I walk, my husband and I are in that park almost every day. Everybody seems to know that it's a one-way bridge, but it's also one way when you get over the bridge, all the way up the hill to where there's a little tiny parking lot right now. So it's not like the problem is just getting over the bridge and then you're clear with 2 roads, you're not. So I can't even imagine, you guys have to drive over there and see yourselves. You'd have to be at the very, very top of the hill and get some kind of signal from down the hill when that bridge would be free. Because it's one way on both sides, especially past the gravel side from the street. You can maybe cut down some trees and shove 2 cars side by side, but not once you pass that bridge until you get to the very, very top of the hill. It's got guardrails, you guys have spent millions of dollars implementing that, so I really don't know how that would work. Also, I tried to reach, I don't know if you guys are aware, you must be probably, but the Naval Maritime Historical Society has an incredible program at the park. Every weekend they have use for building wooden boats. I don't know if they're aware if this would be detrimental to their program, but they really do a lot of work with the youth community. I'm trying to reach out to Rick Van Hemmen, who is in charge of that, to let him know that this is even something that might affect that organization. So I just wanted to bring that to your knowledge. And I had just 2 questions, but I think you answered one of them. One was if the grant money was refused, would you still be pursuing this? And I think you said you would. It would just cost us more. Does that answer that question?
We said that it's still an option, but again, we're looking at alternatives at the moment.
Okay, which is awesome. Thank you. And the other thing is, I know you said in the first phase it's 2 fields. How many parking spaces are slotted for phase 1? Because, yeah, 324, it sounds like the exact amount of parking lots you need for 9 soccer fields. So is it a fourth of that for phase 1?
I mean, we didn't really specify an exact number, because we were talking about gravel lots here, but yes, probably a quarter or less that we would need for 2 fields.
Okay, so we have your word, so if this were to happen in phase 1, it would be not close to 300 parking spaces.
No, the appropriate percentage of parking spaces for that phase would be allocated.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Sir, to the back, please.
Me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
My name is Jim Connors. I live at 64 Smoke Tree Terrace in Shady Oaks. Mr. Fiore, you said that we were not married to this point.
Correct.
You certainly seem as though you're engaged to it, though.
I mean, we want to be funny about it.
I'm not
We had
being
to come
funny,
up with
this
a
is
concept initially. I mean, everything starts with a concept in a 300 square and a 42 square mile town, but no, I'm not married to it, engaged, wed, or otherwise.
Well, it certainly appears that...
If that were the case, I wouldn't be advocating to move to Belford, sir.
I'm sorry.
I wouldn't be advocating to potentially, and lend my support to go to Belford.
That's fine. And I was very surprised by that tonight, that there was some other response rather than simply going into Stevenson Park.
Well, you guys asked us for that last meeting.
That's great, and I'm glad you responded. But let me remind you, this is not a group of doddering old farts that are here. We are voters, and there's 1, 2, 3 people running who might not get our votes. Number 3, if Shady Oaks requested the town to do something at the entrance to our community on Front Street, change it, do whatever we wanted to do with it, wouldn't you have a traffic study for that? No? You just go ahead and grant the variance? without any investigation
Should
at
we be
all.
building more units?
No, we're gonna change the entire front of our entrance.
That would require a traffic.
Would require a traffic stop.
Shadow Lake Village just did it. Right? Shadow Lake Village, they just redid their, just redid their entrance.
Very nice job.
Yeah.
Very nice job.
Those sort of things are required.
I'm now informed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Robert, 38 Dana Terrace. So tonight I came here because I'm in the minority. I came here to speak on behalf of the proposal. And I had some prepared remarks, but I shared them with the gentleman earlier, so now I'm just going to wing it. One of the things that I've heard tonight is that you guys are looking into alternatives. And although I think that is exemplary and part of due diligence, I also heard Mr. Mercantanti speak to, and I've been to those meetings over the last 10 years, we're trying to get athletic fields, or improve the fields at the athletic places, West Front Street, Lincroft Acres, as examples. And every time it becomes a battle of, not in my backyard. So I understand that, and I'm sensitive to it. My house backs up to Bodmin Park. I'm sensitive to the fact that, yes, there's increased noise, there's lights that are there. I get that you guys have worked very hard and are at the sunset of your lives or careers or whatever it might be, and I don't mean any disregard. You guys have worked hard, you earned it, I get it. I'm also speaking not just for that generation, I'm speaking for generations to come. This town, I've lived here for 47 years. I grew up here, I married my high school sweetheart, we are raising a family, we have a 22, a 19, and a 16-year-old children. This is not necessarily a question of where, this is a question of what, this is a question of how we want the town to be in the future. And as was demonstrated before, I mean, there's 8,000 athletes in the varying programs. I think there was some statements earlier about the number that played soccer. This is not just a soccer issue. This is, lacrosse is going to surpass soccer within the next 3 to 5 years if it hasn't already. Where are we going to place those children? We're going to ship them out to the county fields? We're going to ship them out to neighboring counties, neighboring cities? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that, right? These are things that need to be considered as we look at alternatives. The other alternative that has been brought to light this evening is the Board of Education. About 8 years ago, I was part of a movement to gain access to the varsity fields through the Board of Education. I will tell you right now, St. Mary's Athletics, the recreation program that uses Harmony and Form, was in jeopardy this past year because the Board of Education had decided he did not want to permit that group to use those fields. So we're going to be, if we go down that road, we're going to be held hostage to their desires and when we can use and access it. There'll be after-school activities that will prevent you from using it until after 4:30, 5 o'clock. The varsity fields are not open to most of us when in season until after 6 o'clock in the evening. So I think as we look at this and we look at it holistically, there was a gentleman here who was talking about the master plan. I think people really need to look at this in a much broader base and not just as it's in my backyard, it's in your backyard, I don't want it over here, I want it over there. I think people really need to look at this in a more holistic manner and take the information and take the comments. These are very valid points. I'm not disputing that they're valid. All I'm asking is that we be open-minded to what is available to us and how we build capacity as this community continues to grow. Someone else mentioned before about the need for, potentially the need for schools. There are communities that are being built, right? We have the old Via place, we have the old golf course over in the Lincroft section. I get it. That's going to bring families. That's going to bring more youth. That's going to bring more pressure to the township, and not just in athletics, and other infrastructure. So just as you consider this, please don't, to use the gentleman's term before, don't get married or engaged to one particular thing or another, because again, I've seen and I've been a part of, and not just St. Mary's, but even in other athletics, getting permits from the Board of Education can sometimes be a giant hurdle. So be careful about how you wedlock yourself into those ideas. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, ma'am.
I went around to,
Can you have your name and address, please?
oh, sorry, Deborah Herring, 882 West Front Street.
Thank you, ma'am.
I went around to one of the parks in North Middletown, McMahon, and there were spaces there that were in really bad shape that could be repaired, and 2 soccer fields could be easily put in there. One of the baseball diamonds was a swamp, and I talked to a man who lived there and was sitting in the park, and he said that the reason the baseball diamond was flooded was because it was a farm field, and the drainage in a farm field pulls the water into the field for the crops. And in sports fields, the drainage is created to run off so that the field remains dry so it can be played on. So this, there were, I guess, 4 baseball diamonds up there. 1.5 of them were flooded. And then there was a rink, a derelict cement, grass cracked filled, I don't know what it was, some kind of a rink. And you know, that could easily be changed into another soccer field or parking. So there are options. That is an option. That's a property that the town owns or the township owns.
We would lose a baseball field, though, right?
What?
Would we lose a baseball
You
field?
can't, you've lost it already. It's a puddle. It's a mess.
Now, those fields are pretty regularly permitted out. Obviously, when they get wet, they have to close the fields, just like Thorn Harmony, whenever it rains, it closes and they can't play because they're low spots, they have high groundwater, and so when it rains, they're out of commission. But most times, they are playable. The McMahon baseball
Not according
fields,
to this man who's...
well, we issue the permits and they're pretty regularly used.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's 4 baseball fields, and what about that rink? Nobody uses that rink.
Yeah, as I mentioned, that rink, and then we have 2 roller hockey rinks, that one and another park. We're looking to come up with another use because there's not that much demand for roller hockey anymore.
Well, the rink is worthless.
I know, that's why we're going to get rid of it. The only thing is, you can't get a lot, you can get some parking there, probably not a soccer field, though, right? A little too small for that.
Well, I mean, there was space around it, you know?
Yeah.
It wasn't
It's
just...
possible you get one field too.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
My name's Marjorie Cohen, and I live on Honeysuckle Lane in Shady Oaks. And I took a walk to the park today, and I took this picture. I'd like to give it to you, Colleen. Maybe you can pass it around. It's a picture of the bridge. It's 1 lane. It's a very bucolic picture. And I can't imagine you're getting the equipment over that bridge to make the soccer fields, 1, 2, or any of them. And if they couldn't build a bridge without using the Shady Oaks entrance, I don't see how they're gonna build the soccer fields without using that also.
Well, just, we can clear that up. We actually made sure the bridge was designed for large vehicles. For example, a fire engine would have to get in there. The fire engine can use the bridge specifically designed so they could accommodate those. I mean, I think you would want to see a fire engine in there if you needed it. So anybody living in that house would want that. So yes, it's designed for large vehicles.
With the construction of the fields, you couldn't get the bridge built over a bridge that narrow, though.
Yes, we could. We did rebuild the bridge. The reason that we had to use the Shady Oaks access was for emergency purposes for the Stevensons who were living in the house. If they needed, they obviously need to get in and out. They need to get their mail. They need to get go shopping, so we opened up that access point for them while the main bridge was being replaced.
Well, most of the traffic is going to be coming into there with the SUVs, and it's just going to be kind of a crazy mess. I can't imagine.
People bring boats in there now.
Yeah. Very little boats. Anyway, also, I walk there a lot, and I noticed one on the park side of the bridge. There's an underground spring that was eroding the road, and that's a concern of mine in the future. When it rains or there's a flood, that could happen again. Were you aware of that when the bridge was being constructed?
The underground spring?
How do you know there's an underground spring?
Well, it was bubbling
No, it's not underground.
from below.
Yeah, there's wetlands adjacent to that road near the bridge. Right, there is wetlands there, and that was all part of the DEP permit
No, I'm talking
process.
about one little spot that was bubbling up.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
It's groundwater coming out of the ground.
It's not a spring, it's groundwater.
It was bubbling in one small spot.
Yeah, that does happen.
We can promise that was a very highly engineered bridge, that I can promise, based on the cost.
And another thing, I just wanted to comment that it's been hard, a lot of people have left, but I'm really thankful that we live in a country where we can actually do this. Yes.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Michael DeSico, 46 Alexander Drive. First, I'd like to commend the Township Committee for their fortitude in sitting through this very long meeting this evening. There seems to be a basic disconnect between some of the residents' belief regarding Stevenson Park and the committee's proposals regarding Stevenson Park. I think the genesis of that disconnect is the absence of information that flowed to the residents based on this project. And tonight, we hear a whole new slew of proposals that you're not married to this program, you're looking for other fields potentially, more places in town. It's only going to be 2 fields. And I'll ask rhetorically, you're asking residents to trust this committee.
Right.
But I'll ask you, what have you done by way of development decisions this year to earn the residents' trust? From my perspective. With respect to the Route 35 service liquor development, we've had residents begging, literally, for over a year to meet with this committee and discuss options, not to stop the project, but to make it more aesthetically pleasing. And the information that came forth from this committee is we're involved in litigation. Now, that litigation deals with whether the area is in need of redevelopment, really had very little, if anything, to do with the actual project. And they just wanted input as to what would be built, how it would be built, and to enhance their quality of life. And they were stonewalled. About a month ago, there was a proposal to build, on this agenda was the town hall redevelopment project. And circulating about was a rumor that the cost had increased from approximately $22 million to $54 million. And that was pulled from the agenda. No explanation to the residents as to why. No explanation as to whether, in fact, there was an alternate plan. The only thing, we had a very detailed study, I read it, looked at it, was prepared to discuss it that evening, and nothing. Pushed back to, I think, November 19th, something in the end of November. And then with respect to Stevenson Park, I don't think you have to be tone deaf to not understand the suspicion of residents when the meeting It's scheduled for the day after Labor Day. There have been no information sessions, no stakeholder meetings, nothing to educate the residents about what the project was proposed, getting their input as to why it was being proposed there. It all happened after the vote happened, quite frankly. That's when the information started flowing out. And you can't blame us for being skeptical about that, because we were asking and begging for information, and it just wasn't forthcoming. We want to get more answers about development and why it's happening. We've heard people say that they didn't move to North Jersey to make it North Jersey. But we see things happening that are reminding us of that. And what answers do we get about development? What trust has been earned? The only thing I've seen about development is an attack ad piece that Committeeman Perry has now indicated that he asked for it, his committee, his team. They sent an Oprah request in that was legal. And Mr. Nelson and I could debate that issue and litigate that issue, and we have a very spirited debate, as I had with you, Mayor. And I'm not going to say that legally I agree or disagree, because that's what Mr. Nelson and I get paid good money to do. But I will say that Committeeman Perry is fully aware of the confidentiality policy of this town, approved that request, and that confidentiality policy says site data is the property of Middletown Township, and intent for Township to use that information at the citizen's sole discretion, and is subject to and protected by the Electronic Communications Privacy Act. Township will not sell, rent, swap, or otherwise disclose your information to any third party. Township maintains secured area on the site for transmission of site data, and stores all site data in a private and secure database that is not directly accessible on the internet. And I'll tell you, it may be legal for him to request it, but it's not ethical. And that's why these residents, me included, are skeptical. Because yes, there's a legal right to that potentially, and that was requested. But that privacy right was breached, and it should not exist from an insider in the governing body.
Mr. Siegel, I'm going to ask you to wrap up.
Thank you, Mayor.
What to do?
Anyone else wish to be heard this evening? Seeing none, motion to close the public and close the meeting.
Yes, some good stuff tonight.